listening to the Bombhole.
Bombhole Podcast.
It's going to be very hot. It's going to be very uncomfortable for everybody.
The Bombhole.
I'm gonna slide down them big hills, you know what I mean, on the big, nice burgundy snowboard.
Okay, here we go again. We're back at the Bombhole, which is presented by Pub Beer. Today we have a big one, episode 100. But first things first, to my right, we have guest host T-Bird. T-Bird, how are we doing today?
I gotta try it. So good, my dog.
Whoa, dog.
I had to do it.
Easy.
Careful, bro.
I had to do it. I've heard it 99 times.
Well, let's just hear how it comes right out of the horse's mouth here. So, to my left, we have E. Stone. Now, Buds, how are we feeling today?
So good, my dog.
Woo!
That's a master class, right?
That
there.
is.
That's how
That
it's
is.
done.
You did all right.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, this is long-awaited, most anticipated. Stoney Budz, E. Stone. Call him what you will. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Buds, which is nobody, because if you've ever watched one of these podcasts, you are, legendary photographer, before being a photographer, snowboarder, legendary entrepreneur, started Technine bindings, boards, and outerwear, which shaped an entire generation of snowboards, which we're actually wearing in honor of Buds. For those of you guys listening that can't see, we are wearing some Technine gear, me and T-Bird. So first things first, Buds, we'd like to get into just some street knowledge. You've spent a lot of time in the streets shooting photos of snowboarders. Now, what's a parim?
The parim.
Yes, a parim. What's
You want to get into the parim?
Yeah, let's start with the
We're
parim.
starting with the parim. Parim is short for perimeter. When you get up onto a street spot, you don't know where you're going to shoot. You don't know your angles. Everyone's grabbing shovels, and it's cold as shit out there. And Cole Taylor and I, F.O.D.T, we started coining the phrase parim, and we would kind of do 360 around the spot. And then you even take it a little bit further. You're kind of at a street spot, and you know you want to shoot more later in the day, so you even expand your parim, and you kind of look for other spots in the general area.
What would you say mileage-wise? Longest parim walk that's ever gone down?
Sometimes you jump in the car and get a coffee.
And this is probably still in peak shoveling time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's definitely
Yeah.
It's right at the time where you shoveled a little bit, but it's like, all right, what do we gotta do to check out the rest of it? And for real though, it does help because you do find extra spots, and a lot of times great things have happened because right around the corner there could be an A+ spot that you shoot next.
And I will say, you gave me that advice long ago. Parim walk.
Yeah.
Go for the parim walk, and I've actually found good angles doing that.
Well, yeah, you do, because just like a lot of times you're in the backcountry, you don't have the opportunity to do that. You're kind of stuck with the angle you have in the street. You really can come up with a creative angle and maybe even find yourself on top of a building that you wouldn't have even, if you just start shooting, all of a sudden you're not going to have all the angles dialed. So it is very helpful as a media person.
We're cracking the code for the media here. Little industry
But
tips.
it's also a little trick to maybe grab a coffee as well and go to the bathroom and
it's always
little less
convenient
shoveling
when the
right
rest of the crew is in peak shovel.
But
Absolutely.
you know, the
So-
guy riding, you owe it to him to walk the parim and find
true.
the best angle because he's about to put his life on the line.
Well said, Buds. Well, we're getting into the story of Stoney Budz here. We're going to get into a banter marathon, a banter journey, if you will. This is going to be majestic. So first things first, in the story of Buds, tell us about your childhood.
Childhood.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. I was born in Jersey. A lot of people don't know that. Only lived there for like 2-3 days, enough to be in the hospital. And then I don't even know what town, actually. It just says on my passport, Jersey. And then I lived in Buffalo, New York for a little while, and then settled in the CT for my younger years, Connecticut. And lived there till about 7th grade, I think, when my parents got divorced. And I kind of started snowboarding at that time, but then went on to Vermont for my formative years, I'd say. So I kind of like East Coast juggernaut all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
What was the jumping around like attributed to? Was it parents' work or?
You know, I don't even know in the early days because I was so young. But when we lived in Connecticut, we were, I think my dad, he was like a sales rep and he was doing pretty well. But my parents pretty much hated each other. They fought like crazy. So when my brother graduated high school, my parents were going to split, and my mom grew up in Vermont, so that pulled us back to where she grew up, was to Vermont. So we went with her, my sister, and I.
Nice. So at what point in this did you find snowboarding?
Dude, I found snowboarding actually pretty early in Connecticut. When I was young, my dad had us skiing at like 2, and which was pretty rad. I kind of my fondest memories are of like being at ski mountains. We'd always go on these vacations to Vermont, and it was I remember like lodge smells of like food, and being at Killington and the gondola and that Outer Limits with all the huge moguls, like just crazy. Those are like the best memories I think of my youth. But I remember seeing a snowboarder at Mount Snow, I think in about like 86 or something. So I was pretty young, maybe 11 years old. And from that moment on, I wanted to try it. My dad had bought us fresh skis, so he was not down, but I kept throwing my poles off the lift. He'd buy me a new set, throw them off the lift. Just be like, I want a snowboard. He'd buy me a new set, throw them off the lift. And finally for Christmas, they got me a snowboard and a lesson, and then I never went back to skiing, obviously.
Do you remember the setup?
Dude, I do. It was Burton Elite 140, and they were sick. They were, it was the first, they're not sick compared to boards now, but back then it was like the coolest thing I had ever gotten, I would say. They were blue, and we'll maybe put one on the screen. I'll dig up a photo, but they were awesome.
And then so you started snowboarding. You're honing your skills, and you're just probably going down the mountain. At what point were you like, oh, this is what I do, like what I want to do? Maybe I'm going to compete. Maybe I'm going to get further into it.
I would say that happened. It was kind of more of a vacation thing until I got a little bit older. And then I think when I moved to Vermont, snowboarding was just, it was there. You're like in the scene. And so when I moved to Vermont, I really was able to snowboard all the time. And that's when it kind of just became less of a hobby and more of a, damn, I want to do this.
Did you have any like early snowboard videos that shaped you? You know, back then the videos were huge. Was there one that stuck out?
Oh, for sure. When I was young, there used to be this shop, the Boarding House, that Andy Coughlin ran. He was a Burton pro back then.
The dog,
Andy
That's right.
Dog Coughlin.
Yep.
And it was sick. You could go into his shop, and there'd always be people hanging out like pros and whatnot. But he'd have all the videos, and he'd let kids take them home for the weekend. And the first one that kind of comes to mind is the Burton movie Chill.
Yes.
Where Brushy has that rap in it.
Yeah.
When I saw Brushy rapping, I was sold. He was my favorite dude from then on. But as I got older, Hard, Hungry, and the Homeless was the one that like really, really shaped me, I'd say. But there was so many like kind of wild movies out at that time. But those two definitely stand.
It's kind of cool.
Pocahontas too, that Mount Hood movie. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Oh yeah. It's kind of cool that you had that little breeding ground that was Andy Coughlin's shop. Not a lot of kids growing up snowboarding had that, you know?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
We also had the B-side right down the street, and George Cavallo worked there, who's gone on. He works at 686 now, but he went on to be a photo editor.
Yep.
At Snowboarder, and long career. But yeah, I used to go in, shoot the shit with him at the B-side, and they kind of carried all the stuff that wasn't Burton. And then you'd go to the dog shop, and it'd be all Burton stuff, plus some of his homies' gear, so you could really see like all the different kinds of snowboards that were out there at the time, which was rad. And it also kind of made me, when I was young, I was always getting Burton stuff, and always we'd go dig in the Burton dumpster and find boards that are actually seconds that you could take and ride. But once I saw the B-side offer all these other brands, I kind of started, like I grabbed an Avalanche kick one year, a Nitro gyrator. Is that what it was? No, it was a K2 gyrator. There was a sick Nitro board too, a Jeff Davis Pro model, I think. But, yeah, so it was cool to see the other stuff that wasn't Burton because Vermont was such a Burton scene.
Now, a staple in Vermont is Green Mountain Series. A lot of people have came up through Green Mountain Series. Were you chuck and roast out there, bud?
Dude, I was definitely, when I discovered the Green Mountain Series, that became like every weekend you drive to a new spot. We kind of had a crew of people from my school, and we would drive, and then you'd meet all the other people from the East that were also in that scene. And Shane Charlebois was actually there, which was crazy. He was there with Jameel Khan, rest in peace, and his buddy Blair, but they were like another crew. So every time you'd go there, you just see these different crews, and it was like your time to see what other people were doing. And I wasn't super competitive. I never like did super good in the pipe, but I went every weekend, and it was more about the fun and the scene and shredding the pipe and hiking the pipe. And And man, it was the best. The Green Mountain Series was
Yeah,
dope.
kind of seemed like back then it was like what happened after the contest was cooler than what happened during the contests.
At first, I was a little young for what happened after, because we were like, I might have at first been like, I don't know, like, how old are you in like 8th grade, 9th grade? So I was pretty
14
young
or
for
something? Yeah.
what happened after. But then as I got older, yeah, for sure. But we're seeing guys like Seth Neary and Seth Miller, who were kind of juggernauts in the East, the Ray Bynes and Jason Evans, people that never really left the East, but for the time at the East, they were like the best dudes there. So it was pretty cool to see them. I think, who else? Ian Sparrow, I think he went on to do good things. He was in the Green Mountain Series back then.
Well, also at this time, I heard rumor that you maybe were the founder of a snowboard club.
I was. That was actually
What was it? Was it called Budz's Club?
I wasn't Buds at this time. I was just Ethan. It was sick. We started a snowboard club because Utah mountain there. Bolton Valley was our local mountain, and it had night riding. So you were able to go there kind of, if you had a ride, you were able to go there like every day of the week, maybe, or at least twice a week at night. And then on the weekend, so you could kind of up how much you were riding. So what we needed was a bus to use, but we had to have a snowboard club. So we had to raise money. So we went around, me and my friends went around the town and said we were raising money to have a ski team. And we needed to buy gates and like the ski gates. And they gave us all this money. And we used that money to pay to rent a bus from the school, and they let it be an official club. But we needed someone to drive the bus, and so we were able to get one of our older buddies, who he was pretty much like right out of high school, to be able to drive the bus. And somebody's parents signed off on it, but it was basically like a fake snowboard club just to get us up there, and we were able to use one of the short buses to get the whole crew up there.
That's a young entrepreneur right there.
Yeah, it was pretty dope.
Sharpening his teeth is what's happening.
Got us up to Brighton like 2 nights a week on the weekdays until I think we got caught and we got in a little trouble, but they took the bus away. But
that sounds like young buds making moves.
Yeah,
early.
We were making moves.
Yeah,
anything to be riding, anything to get up on the mountain.
Now, I was told that you graduated maybe early or something like that.
I did.
Right?
I graduated a half year early. And the reason is I just wanted to get snowboarding. I wanted to, the second I kind of saw Hard, Hungry, and the Homeless and got a taste of what snowboard culture was like, I was like, I got to get out of here. And I graduated half year early so I could move west.
Beautiful. Now, along those lines, I know that you kind of at one point had to tell your mom, like, hey, Mom, I'm not going to go to college.
Yeah, she had gotten me all the college pamphlets, let's say, like all these different schools. And she even went out of her way to find ones that were in mountain towns. Like there's that one in Colorado, and that's like the
Leadville one?
Yeah, that Leadville one.
Yeah.
Like they had just everything outlined. And I was working at Kitchens at the time too, so they had like even some culinary schools lined up, just like anything to get me in there. And when I told her that I wasn't going to go, she straight up cried, told me that I would be basically, when I turned 40, I would be regretting this and be the worst move I ever made. So thanks, Mom, for
well, give your mom an air horn.
Because this was, correct me if I'm wrong, this was back when, being a professional snowboarder wasn't really like an option. It wasn't a career path for
anybody. It wasn't
anybody.
a career.
Yeah.
There was like in town, you'd see the Burton team, they'd all come through, but they were all kids, they were with dyed hair. And of course, like at one point I dyed my hair too to kind of look like them. But yeah, they were all kids. There was no career. I don't think they were making money at the time.
Yep.
Now, I have to ask, because you've always said, we've been on so many trips, and I've seen you chef up. You're nice. You're nice with the skillet, we'll say.
The skillet.
The kid's nice with the skillet. Now, I know that you've always said, like, when we're on trips, like, I was almost a chef, or like I was going to be a chef. That was going to be my thing. Now, hypothetically, like, what do you think? Let's say you went down that rabbit hole versus snowboarding. What do you think? Are you happy with how it panned out? How do you think your life would have panned out?
Man, I think it would have been pretty bad. I started dishwashing at I think 15 before you even legally could work. And I did that to earn money to snowboard because my mom couldn't really afford snowboarding stuff because it's so expensive even back then. But so I kind of just always had a kitchen job. And then I worked my way up to a cooking job after dishwashing. And you kind of just see these head chefs roll through. Every one of them seemed like they would go insane at one point or another. They were always doing tons of cocaine in the cooler, and they just seemed like the worst people after they kind of went insane after working there so long. And I think if I hadn't chosen the path of snowboarding, I definitely would have been probably in the same kitchen that I worked at and been stuck in Vermont and not have traveled. And, there's nothing wrong with the people that end up doing that, and I'm sure there's plenty of head chefs that don't end up like that. But my experience said that they're kind of wild people, and just that there's always the constant order coming in, like it's just the same thing day in, day out, making the same food. And I think it just would have not ended out so good for me. I would be still in Colchester, Vermont, probably.
Yeah, the culinary industry is such a grind until you make it to the level where you can kind of chill and be that executive chef.
Yeah.
But working your way up to that is a big time grind.
Yeah.
It's gnarly.
These guys that I saw, because if you're not at like a really high-end restaurant, it's kind of a bad scene, it seems like.
Well, there's another kind of underlying topic of this too, because I think about, all right, Buds, you didn't go to college, right? Which is in our society, that's kind of like, is somebody smart? Well, what school did they go to? That's kind of like how we determine somebody's intelligence. But where you've shined is street smarts. You're like, you go in, you're going on a street trip. Buds is like, all of a sudden you go in a 7-Eleven. Buds is like best friends with the guy outside. He's talking to some guy outside his car, and they're fucking buddies for life immediately. And there's something to be said with like that street smarts versus book smarts, and you have the street smarts.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Were you like that as a kid? Like, has that always come naturally to you, connecting with people? Because you have a natural gift at doing that.
Yeah, I never really thought about it. I think when you have to move in 7th grade to a new school and make all new friends, I think you have to be a little bit outgoing, or else you're not going to make good friends. So I think maybe that had something to do with it, but it must just be personality trait, I guess, too. Like, I always just love hearing people's stories and hearing about them. Everyone has something interesting to tell if you give them a chance. And if you give them a chance, they kind of really opens them up, too. And all of a sudden they're doing, like, they're going to be your homie, and it's going to be a better scenario. If you're a dick to somebody, you're going to get that right back at you,
Would you attribute your personality more to your mom or your dad? Who are you more like, or neither?
Unfortunately, my dad, I would say.
But there's something also to be said too, because when you look at your personality trait, like treating what you do is you treat the person at 7-Eleven that is fucking homeless the same as a Fortune 500 company owner, right? And that's actually not a common trait. Usually people treat everybody differently according to their social statuses. But the thing I admire so much about you is just you treat everybody the same. And does that come naturally? It's just who you are?
I just feel like at the human level, what isn't the same about them, Like, what's to say that guy's, who knows what his story is, why that guy's working at the 7-Eleven compared to the kid who maybe his dad set him up with a bunch of money to go to this great school, and, who knows if that guy's a good guy, maybe this guy's a better guy. And so treating them the same, it's just, on the human level, they are the same. What's to say they're different, I guess is how I look at it.
All right, Buds, I think this is a good time to transition into a guest question from Ollie Goulet. Here we go.
What's good, my dogs and the whole Bombhole family? Stoney Budz, I got like a couple quick questions / demands of you. Why don't you tell the people your full real name? And also, I would love to hear you describe what the E-roll is. And lastly, if you could sort of break down the vibe of the Sunridge Apartments scene when we'd all first moved to that area to Vail. Be well, my men and ladies out there. Bye.
Three-part
Heavy three-part question from Ali. So first one, my full name is Ethan Stone Fortier. And a lot of people don't know Fortier is my last name. They think, I even get checks that say Stone. And but yeah, my middle name is Stone. It's not because I was a stoner. I think that's great-grandfather on my mom's side, their last name was Stone. And so Ethan Stone Fortier. And then what was the next one? The E-roll?
What is the E-roll?
The E-roll, whenever sometimes, or off a kicker, it's basically like it's almost like a barrel roll with a late 180. And I didn't realize until doing this podcast the reason why my body did these is because instead of like squatting and spinning backside, tucking, I would tuck too much, like almost a McTwist. Yeah. And so I would go off a giant booter and end up just naturally doing that, probably because of my body shape. And I could land them like no problem. And they called them the E-roll.
So it's kind of like a Misty.
Yeah, but it's different.
More like human kickflip late.
Yeah,
180.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you're spinning backside.
Yeah.
What's the grab? Where are we grabbing?
Just probably right in between the bindings, backhand.
Gotcha.
We call that indie, I believe.
Yeah, we call that indie. After all these watching the Olympics. Smooth spin. I think there was 2 spins with a grab.
He did something off of that.
I think
Definitely
that
did
was
something.
a trick.
That was a trick. All right, and then the last question. So let's preface this
Sunridge.
because we can back it up and talk about your migration, but answer the question.
Yeah, so
first.
Sunridge Apartments was our first apartments in Avon, Colorado, which is right outside of Vail, and we had one of your standard 2-bedroom spots, pretty small. I mean, it was smaller than like these 2 rooms almost. Like I'd say if we, I don't know the square footage, but it was your basic family room, kitchen, 2 bedrooms, 9 people in there. I had in one bedroom, there was a king size bed, which I shared with Ali for a whole season with our other buddy, Matty L, but a little platform at the feet. So he was at our feet. So 3 of us in that room, and it made it affordable for us. You know, it was like, I don't even know what the rent was. Less than $100 a person, I would say. Avon and Vail's not cheap, you know, so it's kind of how you got to live out there. But yeah, that was Timber Ridge. Good times though. All he had his DJ set up in the closet too, so it was kind of perfect.
In the closet
of that bedroom we were living in, yeah. So we'd end up packing just people in that room and in the closet. It was like a walk-in closet in the master, you know, so just enough room for the DJ kit and a bunch of people.
Legendary.
Good times.
Now, I got to talk about the fact, because we kind of skipped over, you're living on the East Coast. How do you get from the East Coast to Colorado? What does that look like?
I did the standard go to Mount Hood summer camp, like everybody wants to do when they're a young kid. Once you find out about Mount Hood, I don't even know how I found out about it, probably from the dog, Coughlin. And it's funny, before I went out to Mount Hood, I was car surfing. And the homie went way too fast. You know when you ride on top of a car?
Oh, actually surfing a car.
A car, yeah.
Sounds dangerous as hell.
Yeah, he hit the brakes because I was told him to slow down, and he hit the brakes too fast, and I flew off and broke both my wrists. So I went out to Mount Hood with 2 broken wrists, and which sucked, but it was still like the best time of my life, which made me be like, man, I got to move west. Like, I got to be a part of this, you know? So eventually I kind of decided, kitchen life, if I chose that route, it was going to be a rough scene for me. So I got to get out of there. And a lot of my friends on the East that were snowboarders were kind of hesitant. They were just more like that East Coast attitude, like, oh, the East is the best. You can't get off of there. And so a lot of them stayed back. I'd met Ali just jibbing like a picnic table bench or something at Smuggler's Notch or one of those mountains. And he was down. So we were like, all right, let's make a plan. So we just got in our cars and headed west with, I think $1,000 in my pocket, which I had earned working in kitchens, and just made the move. We got out there, and we wanted to move to Breckenridge. That was kind of the goal, because in Hard, Hungry, and the Homeless and all that, that's where the scene was. It was obvious. Like, it seemed like you could film a whole video part there. And so we get out to Breckenridge, and Ali went a little bit before me. No housing, like anywhere. Every single house was booked. So we ended up being like, well, the closest place we can be then is Vail. So we ended up in Avon, which is even farther than Vail. But it turned out all the other homies that used to live in Breck, like all the pro snowboarders, couldn't get a place either. So they all moved to Vail at the same season, like guys like J2 and Adam Merriman, Stevie Alters, Cody Dresser, like all the pros at the time. So it turned out to be like the next pilgrimage, I guess, from Breck all the way over. Tarquin Robbins was another homie. So we were kind of in the right place without even knowing it. We were really bummed that we had to move there at first. But then all of a sudden you get there, and it's a very small town. You're like hanging out at one of the skate spots, and all of a sudden you realize, oh shit, all these homies are here. So it was the right move, I guess. And we had a good crew. My stepbrother moved out there with me, Ali, and just a bunch of homies.
And you guys were kind of like some of the first East Coasters to do that. Now it's so common for an East Coaster to be like, yeah, I'm not going to college. I'm going to move to Mammoth, or I'm going to move to Utah or Colorado, whatever it is. That wasn't like a standard operating procedure back then, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, out of like all the people in the East that I knew, it was only like our 4 or 5 of us that we could get to go over there, I guess. And then once we got out there, we would tell people how rad it was, and more people would start coming. But yeah, it was pretty, not a lot of people were doing it, but it was pretty obvious, and you watch the videos, like, it's better than, I mean, the East Coast was rad, and I have a lot of pride for the East, but it was obvious the scene was out West.
Now, I have to ask, thinking about your childhood, I'm going to go deep philosophical, deep dive on him, but growing up as a kid who moved around a lot, you were kind of in a lot of different places, probably had a lot of, like, fragmented friend groups. When you found snowboarding, were you like, these are my people?
Yeah. That was one of the sickest things about snowboarding is you would see another one and it was like instantly your homie. Like without even having to talk much, it was just instantly like you'd lock eyes and be like sick and ride the chairlifts with them. And there were so few snowboarders, you were just friends fast, you know? So for sure, I think you're right.
Well, I think that, all this talk about Bud's snowboarding, we're going to need to see some evidence of you boarding.
I don't know if it exists.
We dug deep on the internet. Shane Charleblas sent me this first clip, and this is a log jib from 411.
Oh, used to love the lumber.
Yeah. Lumber god.
Yeah. Back in Beaver Creek, man, Vail, man, lumber was just everywhere, and definitely something I excelled at, I guess you would say.
Dude, it still is. Summit County is like
still there,
the
right?
rainbow log capital of the world.
Yeah, I don't know why it only forms really there. You know, it's such a crazy thing.
We also have a real treat here, and this is basically, I think the video is called the Novak theory.
Oh, all right.
And we have
I don't even
basically
remember
as
this
close to it's 53 seconds of Bud's boarding. Right
Whoa.
Here. So, yeah.
I didn't
Bud,
choose the song, obviously.
Narrate what's happening to the people.
Let's looks. All I see is a tree so far.
Oh, all right, that's Vail Pass.
Well, that was big, dude.
That's what we said.
Wow.
Yeah,
this is
backcountry
dope,
god
dude.
back then, dude.
Yeah, I guess so, dude. I have no memory of any of this.
Did you see that wedding cake pillow stack?
Yeah,
and Stone
dude.
just pointed it down.
There's some big mountain. I obviously didn't hike up there. I wonder how I even got up there. Just kidding. Dude, this was at Vail Pass. That was a pretty dope hip sesh right there. Or QP sesh, I should
Dude, you're
say.
going big mountain on that ass.
Yeah, I guess I was a bit of a big mountain Larry back then.
Dude, look at the Coolie King right here.
Yeah, I have no memory of this video part either. This is dope.
Coolar God.
Bit of a Coolar King scenario going on.
To
Who
this
knows?
day, that's still called the Stony Coolar.
Yeah,
That's an actual story.
First descent.
They
Yeah,
call that
first
Bud's
descent.
playground of punishment, I believe, as well.
I don't know if there's some camera magic going on there, but some of those look kind of big.
Who's your best guess of running cam on those?
Kelly Flynn made the Novak theory. I
give him
don't
an
know
air.
where no one knows where he's at, what's going on with him. Might have like disappeared to Japan or something.
We have one last morsel of Ethan Stone Fortier footage here. And Stevens dug this up, and I don't know what it's from.
Oh, this is Hollywood, dog.
Yeah, Hollywood. He goes back 180, and then he serves up a cab 7.
That's
Yo!
right.
Yep.
It's kind of off kilter. Oh, that's why it's because it's filmed with his phone, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a whole video part there to that whole song.
Now, this was before E-Stone, right?
Uh,
you were Ethan back then?
Some of my homies called me Stone, but I was, just Ethan back then. But some of my good homies called me Stone, I guess. It kind of started.
What boards were you riding? Were you getting boards from anyone at that time?
I think in that Hollywood one, I was on Original Sin, it looked like. I was sponsored by them for a little bit. Then I was sponsored by Scott for a little bit. Kevin Zacher was a team manager, photographer, and he hooked us up, which was dope. Like, he got Blotto and I on there, which was pretty dope. I was on 686 for a long time, which was sick. Mike West had Blotto and I on it. Blotto and I had like a interview together in Strength Magazine that was dope. I can probably find some of those photos and we'll throw them up on the screen. But so we were sponsored, a little bit of money coming in. Very low level pro.
Kids cashing checks.
Snapping necks.
Cashing small checks.
Yeah.
But it was enough to get me cruising around. What was sick is Tarquin and I became pretty good homies. And he would just throw me in the back of his car without even really letting me decide if I was going to go or not. He just put me in his car all hungover. He didn't drink or anything, and he'd just be like, "Yeah, we're going on a trip." Stuff me in the back of his car and just bring me along with him on pretty rad trips. Pay for everything for me just because I didn't have money to go.
Explain who Tarquin Robbins is at this time, because not all of our listeners maybe know.
At this time, he was pretty much the biggest. He kind of brought in the style of the jib to snowboarding, I would say. He was a bit of a bad boy. People thought there was like rumors that he had guns on him on the mountain and stuff, but he had like really sick style and really sick video parts. Kind of the big, super big pants and short board, was really sick. We'd have to just throw some clips up for people to understand, I guess, because he kind of just brought in a new style to snowboarding, which was a bit more like skate influenced. And at this time, he was a very big pro.
And you were driving around in a nice car, right? When he picked you up?
It was this really sick, I think it was a Lincoln Continental with rims. And this is the type of guy Tarquin was. He gave me that car. One day. Yeah, he just gave it to me when he was done with it, with the rims and everything. And I drove it until I drove it back east one year and didn't make it back out west. So I had to leave it in like Kansas or something. But I got like probably 3 years out of it, and it was sick. He just gave it to me, like, no questions asked. Here's a title. Let's
Picturing
go.
you driving, pushing that thing around like Colchester, Vermont is such a
It
scene.
had gold rims on it. It was so. Tarquin was like the first gangster snowboarder. I guess we could say that. He was a hip hop DJ. Like the first person to kind of to persona the gangster in snowboarding. And he was in Japan. He was just humongous. But it was sick. Yeah, he took a liking to me and would just bring me. All of a sudden, we're going to Jackson. We're going to Big Bear. And never would ask for. Was making tons of money, so he wouldn't ask for anything. And I got to meet tons of people, And at the same time, J2 and I became good friends, and he was kind of doing the same thing as well, introducing me to all sorts of people. And I think that was kind of how I got into these videos and all that. And Ali as well. Ali was a pretty big pro back then as well.
Hey, Birdman, I think we should hit a quick Patreon right now.
I'm ready for it. Let's go. First of all, I want to thank all the Patreon members. You all help the wheels of this incredible podcast turn. So thank you for your support. We support you. You support us. It's a great relationship. This is coming from Den M. Might be Denim. Might be Den M. D-E-N-M. Eastone, what is your craziest sleepwalking story?
What's funny about a sleepwalking story is I'm asleep. How am I going to know what this crazy is? So that's like someone else has to tell me what's going on.
What's the craziest story someone's told you?
I've heard a lot of sleep talking stories, more so than sleepwalking. Because I think at my house, when I'm sleepwalking, when it happens, my wife just stays asleep. Doesn't really say much to me. On trips, though, Chris has seen evidence of sleepwalking, like a bunch of food around and grapes on the floor.
Yeah, we were in Quebec, and we woke up in the morning, and there was like a gallon of milk on the counter, and like an entire, basically bowl of grapes that he had dusted in the middle of the night.
And they were probably like Stark's grapes or something. Someone that was super bummed that I ate their grapes.
And then in the morning, he actually ended up like throwing up and shitting himself from all that milk and grapes. But
yeah, I don't know if I have a specific
Finland. What about Finland?
That's the story. Yeah, see, someone's got to remind me.
Yeah, I think JP was there for Finland. Yes. I might have heard this from
Thank
JP
you
Walker.
for reminding me, because I was asleep.
Yep.
So yeah, we're in Finland in a Airbnb, and it's very small. Whoever booked this thing, man. As I showed up a couple days late, there's nowhere to sleep. And I think there was like the whole 32 team almost. I don't think you were there, minus you.
Yeah, I wasn't there. Yeah.
But there's literally like 8 people, and it's kind of like living back in Avon, Colorado. Like 9 people in a 2-bedroom, gear everywhere in this place. And I had this little like corner on the floor with a sheet that they left out for me, so I wasn't sleeping much anyways. So I took a sleeping pill, and it was one of those scenarios where you take a sleeping pill and then you're asleep, and you take another sleeping pill, which happens to people. And so I was completely out of it. And all I hear in the morning, I just remember the aftermath in the morning. So apparently I was up, I was pinballing off all the gear and the walls, like bouncing off the walls to get to the kitchen, and that's right where Scotty Stevens was sleeping. And I proceeded to make a 40-ounce latte. Like I found like the biggest. It was more of a bowl maybe, but it was literally 40 ounces. And I sat there and just pressed the button, and filled up a 40-ounce latte. And Scotty like didn't even get up and say anything. He just like probably was awake. Like, what the fuck is going on, man?
I seem to remember too, someone who was in that apartment said you were giving out like stock market advice. Like,
Dude, I've heard from my wife. I've sold real estate and crunched numbers. And one time I was apparently surfing and
your wife texted me the quote.
Yeah, I wake up or she's awake because I'm talking and I just go surf o'clock, dude. And she recorded it and she couldn't find the recording, but just stuff like that. But I've actually crunched numbers before and people say the math was right, and I'm like horrible at math.
Wow.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy.
I could see that as a T-shirt. Surf o'clock.
It's surf o'clock.
Look for that in the Bombhole store.
And I said it fully in a surfer's voice too.
Yeah.
Like I was fully in the water.
Shaka's out.
Shaka's out. And my wife happened to record it, which is pretty sick.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so it hasn't happened in a while either. I don't know. Maybe that phase of my life is gone. We'll see. It's kind of like a stepbrother stuff the couch cushions in the oven scenario.
All right, buds. I think it's time for that part in the show. You know what that is, Bird?
I know exactly what it is.
What is it?
It's Name That Video Part.
Oh, no.
Name That Video Part is presented by our friends over at the Icon Pass, huh, T-Bird?
Indeed, my friend. The Icon Pass is now on sale for the 2022-2023 winter season. We're asking you to keep the stoke alive, seek a season of fun in the mountains, and do you across 50 of the best ski and snowboard destinations on planet Earth.
The Icon Pass family welcomes 3 new legendary destinations to its family of mountains. Chamonix in France, Sun Valley in Idaho, and Snow Basin right here in Utah. Additionally, new pass options have been added to the mix, starting at only $249. The Icon Pass 2-day and Icon Pass 3-day offer a range of available, affordable entry points. Score the best prices on 22-23 and get all the early season goods.
Additionally, upon purchase, Buy Now, Ride Now is now an option with immediate spring access to 3 mountains and a total of 10 destinations by April 11th.
Save up to $200 in child passes with the purchase of an adult pass.
What we're saying, Icon Pass, it's legit. Drop in.
So pay it forward with a payment plan as low as 0% down, 0 APR. And you can find all that information at iconpass.com. Pick up your pass now.
Let's do this.
All right, Stoney Budz, you know what time it is.
I do.
We're getting into Name That Video Part, and I know you've been dreading this. What's your confidence level? How are you feeling? Talk to me.
0.0.
0.0.
Yeah.
Wow.
Here's the thing: is I probably should all this talk about Hard Hungry the Homeless. I should have watched it again. It's been a lot of years, so if you'd used one of those, I will not know it. But I have a feeling if it's like hip hop, it's a Technine movie probably.
Well, let's see how you do.
Yeah, we'll see what's up.
Here we go.
So that has to be Hard Hungry and the Homeless.
That's correct. Let's keep it running for a sec.
I do remember that one actually.
Okay.
But the part, holy smokes!
Can you picture it in your mind?
I can kind of picture it.
I'll give you this. Goofy-footed rider.
You know I'm tricks-lexic.
Okay.
My problem is I snowboard and skate different ways and surf a different way. So in my mind, it's goofy and regular is the same. Watching the Olympics, though, I started practicing, and I think I got it now. But goofy-footed rider. It's not the part. No, it's not the part where they're messing around on the logs and they light it on fire, right? It's not that part.
It's after that part. I'll give you
After that part.
Post log fire.
You got to throw me more bones.
He currently lives in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Dude.
And he mainly rides powder, and he's a sushi chef.
Oh, Gooch.
Yes. There it is. Let's go. Congratulations. You got it, buds. We don't have a prize pack for you, but what we do have is something I think even better. Hand this thing over.
Better than a prize pack?
Slide this across the table here.
What's in the box? Oh, wow. Episode 100 cake?
Yes, Donnie!
Do I need to show this to the camera or will it break?
I don't know.
No, I think you're good.
I don't know if the camera can see. You might have to take it out of the box.
What's in the box? You know that movie?
It's
Brad.
I brought this up last night. 7.
Oh, yes.
Seven. Yeah. There's a head in the box. It's his wife's
It's not
head.
a head.
It is actually. It's
It
my
actually
head.
is a head, yeah.
It's my head in a box. Episode 100.
Wow. And can you, for the audience who maybe can't see, can you explain what's happening in said photo?
Oh, tinfoil hat. There you go, audience.
That photo is unbelievable.
This is amazing, dude. I didn't know you could put photos on a cake. Why are we making prints? We could be selling cake photos.
We will mail you a cake. It'll show squished and destroyed by the time you get it.
That's great. They did great work with that.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you don't get a prize pack. You have all the merch. So, I figured you don't need any more merch.
That's incredible.
So we got you a cake.
This is the coolest cake I've ever gotten. I will say that.
For part 2 of Name That Video part, this is for the listeners. Buds, how do they decide if they know the song?
You're supposed to ask him.
Oh yeah, T-Bird, do you know how this works?
I actually do know how this works.
Okay.
What you're going to do is you're going to comment on the thumbnail of Chris and Ethan, a.k.a. E-Stone. First comment with the rider in the video is going to win a Bombhole prize pack.
That's right. And here's the song. First one to comment gets it.
Oh, wow. Now that's a track.
Like actual certified iconic video part.
That's what we call a certified banger.
Thank you guys for playing Name That Video part.
Stoney Budz, while you were living in Colorado after the Great Migration, the Lewis and Clark migration into the new school of competitive snowboarding, or of freestyle snowboarding, so to speak, you started a little company.
I did.
Let's kind of dig deep into that. Give us all the details behind Technine.
The deets.
The deets.
So we moved into Colorado, and it kind of happened pretty fast. When we got out there that first year, I don't know who was doing it first. It might have been like Tarquin, but they were taking their bindings and cutting them apart and using the parts from them and going to Home Depot, and you'd get a bracket and make a binding out of it pretty much. You'd cut your heel cup off a metal binding, use a hinged bracket mounted on your board, and it would be the first baseless bindings. And they were just handmade, J3 was my roommate. Jason Damaris, his name. I went to high school with him. I give him an air horn. He was working up at Beaver Creek as a snow blower, so he had access to their tool shed. And they had a metal bender in there, and so we got diamond plate metal and bent it into a heel cup with their tools, and then made some of our own sick looking baseless bindings that were all chromed out, because with all the tools we had, we could make really dope ones. At this time, they were also cutting the nose and tail off of boards. You'd put a plate on it, and you draw a line, and then just cut your nose and tail off. So these boards were all short, and it was new school is what it was called, and tried to look more like a skateboard, I guess. And having your feet on a baseless binding was more skateboard feeling. And my dad came out to visit, and he actually just surprised us. He showed up without calling, him and his wife, and barged in the room, and Ali and I were in bed together, which he didn't know we shared a bed. It was probably a little awkward for him. Didn't know what was going on. So he came out to visit us, saw these bindings J3 had made, and they were dope. They looked all chrome. The straps were finished because they were off some other bindings. And he was I have some friends. He's the businessman, eternal businessman, salesman. He was I could get these made in New York and make them look really dope, professional. And we were dude, that would be sick. So he made some, and they were anodized metal, which you could make them in any color you wanted, really. You could buy straps at the time from this company, Duratech, which was a binding company, and you could just buy the straps. So we used their straps and high backs, and we went to a trade show, just walk around at ASR, and we also gave the bindings out to like Tarquin, J2, gave the bindings out to tons of people, so all the pros were kind of riding them. But we show up at that trade show, we're just walking around, and we meet these Japanese guys, and they put in an order for, I think it was like for $300,000 worth of them.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And you weren't like, let's make a lot of money with this.
No,
You were just like,
we were
let's
just
see what
like,
happens.
yeah, this is dope. Like this, let's see what happens. I mean, but my dad was probably more interested in the business side, and it turned out that they were Maneuver Line, which is like one of the cooler distributors in Japan. Like they kind of pick up all the brands that are more backed by riders. Let's say like kind of like every cool brand that a rider started at some point is the brand they would carry. And they ended up being a distributor for the whole time, 20 years.
Damn.
Which was nuts. So they basically put us in business. And so from there, we had this big order, and we had to fill it. So we sat down. We didn't even have a name at that point, really. The bindings were just kind of more generic, just the first baseless bindings anyone had ever made.
Oh, hold on. You have one behind you.
Oh, I do. There
Yeah,
is
grab
one down there.
There's one behind Bird.
These were more after we got the name, but they look just like this. You had to T-bolt your board. You had to T-bolt the board, which voided all warranty on your snowboard.
Talk about a monopoly.
Yeah. And, once you picked your stance, too, that was your stance. There was no change in it. You had to drill right through your whole board and then P-Tex over the hole in the bottom. But, we ended up sitting down and being like, all right, we got this order. We're a brand, and because of dance hall reggae at the time, which I was a big fan of, they're always talking about Technine, and it was all metal looking, so I named it Technine, and boom, we were a company.
Wow.
It was pretty sick.
Now, at this time, you're still snowboarding. You hadn't transitioned into photography.
No, I was just snowboarding, like that video you had pulled up before, like that was, I'm sure, after this happened and all that. This was like right when I moved out there, so it was like 1993. And still I don't think I'd pick up a camera until like 2000.
Well,
So
let's stay on Technine too, because I'm fascinated about the early inception. So you go, you put your order in, you start selling them. All of a sudden, there's money coming in. Going like, how was it just learning the ups and downs of entrepreneurship there?
it was crazy. And at first, we handled like J3 obviously handled the binding, how the bindings were going to be, like the design, because he had designed the first ones and he kind of had a mind for it. My dad would set up all like the shipping setup in the East Coast, and then we kind of just through guerrilla marketing, which I kind of took over, got as many, like almost all the dope pros at the time that we could on the product, which really got the name out there quick. And so it was easy to grab a bunch of sales reps, and all of a sudden they were getting in stores all over the place. And yeah, it became a real business really fast. And we were all pretty excited. I mean, none of us had ever, except for my dad, had any experience. So it was kind of like basically my college, I would say.
And how were the politics of like divvying up who had what part of the business, and was there anything there?
Well, one thing I was going to get into is my dad, the businessman that he was, when he came in, he was like, he divvied my stepbrother, J3, and myself each 3% of the company, which is a very small amount, but we were so young. We were just like, whatever. And his reason was he was the person putting in all the money. So he was like, and we were young. We were like 18, so we were just like excited to be able to do it. And there was obviously no money to get paid either, So we just kind of started like that. And we were as happy as could be with those amounts either, because we were just excited to be working in snowboarding, And so the roles of the company just kind of came from what people were good at. I was good at talking to people and doing marketing and a bit of sales. My dad was good at sales as well. J3 was an engineer. Or he didn't even know he was an engineer at the time. He just became an engineer. He would end up going to China and designing every binding we made, which was pretty sick. So he got good at like CAD, and he'd spend time over at China and all that. But at the time we were only binding, so yeah, we just kind of grew small at the time and took our roles, and kind of within a couple of years we got bigger than we thought we'd get. So it got a little more serious. And then I was at my dad's house. in the summertime visiting where he was running Technine out of, and I go out to the mailbox and get the mail, and there was a Amex bill in my name. I was just like, oh, this is weird. I don't have an Amex. And I open it up, and it's like $70,000.
Whoa.
And I'm just like, what the fuck is this? This is how Technine was funded. Was a credit card in my name that my dad put out. So I was just like, whoa, dude, what's up? And so obviously took more of a percentage of the company at the time. But that was like kind of a first kind of inkling, is just like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. This is a little bit weird. But either way, my dad paid it all off, which was tight with the company, so I wasn't stuck with the debt. But it was still just a little bit wild of a thing to see. But it did get me more percentage of the company, which I guess I was more stoked at the time anyways. So it turned out I funded Technine. And there was like an age,
proxy.
And my mom had kind of warned me about this stuff because there was always a joke. Don't give your social security number to my dad if you have a baby, because it'll end up, they'll have a credit card.
Oh my God.
And this, unfortunately, is a fact. Like, when I actually got my own Amex credit card, I got it in the mail and said member since 68. And I'm just like, member since 68? I wasn't born yet. And it's like, because he had already had a credit card way back when. Like, just how he was funding business. Like, he had credit cards in all the kids' names to, like, fund all his endeavors.
Oh my God.
Yeah, kind of wild.
Yeah.
But that's so how some people roll, I guess.
So with the company, you're cranking along. How many years did you just do bindings? And also, like, what was the growth as far as like revenue? Like, it sounds like $200K the first year.
Yeah, we got up to like $1 million in revenue pretty quick as just bindings. And issue was, once you hit $1 million in revenue, you got to be able to fund your production. And none of us had the money. It's a lot of money. Like, you need to be able to go to your factory and break off a check for like $500K or something. And back then, sometimes your distributors would give you like 25 to 50% up front, which they never would do now. But Japan would actually give us a little bit of money, but it still like wasn't enough to fund production. So we got to a point where we had to bring on someone with money or figure out a bank loan, but it's hard to get a bank loan on a company like that that's seasonal. And I mean, there's a lot of better businesses than a snowboard business which is a pretty hard business, being seasonal and so niche. So we had to bring on an investor, or else we wouldn't be able to make production. And that's kind of, I think every small company that grows too fast is a problem that they're either encountering or going to encounter. If they don't, 686 is an example of a company that grew small at first and right. Mike West was able to like leverage everything properly and not have to ever do that. And I think that's pretty much a black belt move, because it's definitely a good thing. So we bring in an investor, and they're rad at first. They're always super dope. And actually, our first investor was super cool. And the way they see growth is like, all right, you got bindings, like, oh, you got to make boards now. And like, how else are we going to get more market share, So they kind of come in with the money, and you got to do what they want to do, or else it's not going to work out. And so we ended up, once we make boards, you kind of can't keep all the same team riders. So it gets to be a bit more of a complicated scenario with marketing, because we kind of had it made when it was just bindings. Nobody was making money. No pros were making money from a binding sponsor. So we were able to get any rider we wanted at the time, which is rad. So you make boards, it kind of complicates things, and their other sponsors get a little worked up. It's like you can't have a Burton rider all of a sudden, and it just gets a little bit more convoluted. And then they wanted to make outerwear too, and then that even gets harder. You get all of a sudden 3 categories. But we ended up outgrowing that investor, so we ended up having to get another investor. So then like everything gets diluted again, and more money comes in. It gets more complicated, and but we were growing pretty fast. I think at our peak, we were at like 6 million or something, which is pretty good.
Big company.
Yeah.
That's some cheddar bisque.
That's some bisque.
A lot of bisque.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And it was, we were at the point where we were able to pay riders and pay them pretty well and all that. And it was pretty dope. But running a business is insane. It's like pretty much you start to learn that there's no matter what going to be a problem that's going to put you out of business if you don't face it. It could be your factory, all of a sudden burn down. That happens. And Japan, like you have to get multiple factories, you start to realize in China, because one could maybe screw you over while another one burns down, and hopefully the third one delivers. It's madness, and it's hard.
And at what point, as Technine is growing, were you like, okay, I'm going to table like the pro snowboarding thing, and I'm kind of getting sucked into this a little bit more full time?
That was a very hard thing for me because I didn't want to table it. You know what I mean? I just wanted to shred as much as I could. And the way it was working pretty good, so that it was better to have us out west because that's where everything was going on, and the business was back east with shipping and all that. So I would say it was when I moved to Utah, I kind of that's when I got into photography, and I guess, and that was more why I tabled riding. It wasn't as much because of Technine, because you can still ride and have enough time. Like you have the whole summer. I mean, there's so much time. And back then, it wasn't very hard to be a pro rider, I would say, as like it is these days. You know what I mean? You don't have to be training like Ayumu must have to train to do what he's doing in the pipe. It was pretty mellow. There's a lot of partying going on and a lot of broing down, and it really like wasn't very complicated. So it was very easy to do the Technine side of things. And we didn't have a lot of money, so we took on a lot of work ourselves as well. Like I ended up doing all the graphic design and all the web design and all the marketing. And so everyone just step up to roles, and it would work good. And it feels like you're not working when you're doing it for a snowboard company. So it was pretty mellow to use. The hardest part was learning things, I guess, because I didn't have any background in graphic design. I just kind of learned as I went.
And this is all print, where you're like taking scans of film and laying out the ads, right?
Yeah, I remember like the first, all of a sudden websites became a major thing, like drawing what the website was going to look like on paper, and then having to go take some class in LA that taught you how to code, and you had to build the website all through code, which was it was crazy. And then there was programs that kind of helped that, but it was all like letters and numbers and symbols to make a website back then. So it was pretty wild. Like took a course in that, like a 10-day course or something, and then had a website going. But I was obviously the future, so you had to do it. But yeah, it was kind of just learn as you go and take a different hat on the company. And even though we were doing those sales, there still wasn't a lot of money. Like you didn't want to just bring on mad employees. And there was, like I said, all these problems you always have to be ready for. So it was, running a brand is a lot of work. It's crazy to keep it all going. And especially when it's a snowboard brand that's seasonal, you're only making your money kind of in a brief window that's from Christmas to February. That's like all the time you have for sales. So if you ship a month late, like you're in big trouble. So it's just problem after problem to overcome. So you end up getting good at that. And, I was stoked we last 20 years, which was awesome. I wouldn't trade it in for anything. Like it was an awesome experience. And, after, I think towards the end of it, I kind of was a little bit over it anyway, so it was kind of exciting. After designing a catalog for 20 years, writing the copy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it gets old.
Like, how are you going to write that intro paragraph for the 20th time to say the same thing but different? You know what I mean? It just gets to be. And picking another, board graphics are always super fun because you get to work with the artists and pros and come up with these really rad pieces of art, so that was always really exciting. But after 20 years, it kind of... you have this like attachment to this brand that almost feels like it's your child because you kind of molded it from its conception to where it is now, and you're very protective of how how it's going to be treated and everything that's going to be everything about that brand that's released out to the public. You almost have to manicure it a certain way if you want to keep an eye on the marketing, and it's just after 20 years, it gets to be a little like, maybe I should try something different.
Another like watershed moment for you was your migration to Salt Lake City, where you currently live. What prompted that move?
Marco moved out to Utah first.
Mark Frank Montoya.
Mark Frank Montoya. Yeah. And he was one of the biggest Technine riders at the time. Super good friend. Moved out there and was basically like, man, you guys are blowing it. Like it's the mountains out here are just so much better. And I had gone out there once with J2 as well, J2 and Megan Pischke when they dated at the time, and went to Snowboard with my board. I think it was like one of my original sin boards with the nose and tail cut down, so it was like I think it was like a 135 or something. I'm on the tram on a powder day, and the locals just looking at me in twos, just like, dude, who are you guys? And we were on mushrooms, and it was just like, oh, dude, I don't know. What are we doing here? Bombs are going off in the Abbeys for you know how they do at Snowboard, and it was quite the experience, but fun as hell. So I kind of knew Utah was dope. So Marco got us out here, and I think in the migration at first it was Blotto and myself, and we ended up moving in with Marco and getting a house here, kind of in between the canyons, and it was dope. The hype was real. Marco was right. The mountains here, awesome.
Now I want to rewind back to a couple Technine things, because it's such an iconic brand for so many different reasons. Like, we got to talk about how you guys kind of carved a niche where you guys were kind of hip hop inspired, whatever. It's all like you started making F.O.D.T, finger on the trigger, and those videos were insane. And specifically, I want to talk about that because those kind of shaped my childhood. You guys had Represent and then Gen Pop, and those first two was when it was just bindings. And it was like it was like a big homie video. The soundtrack was incredible. And those ones, that video, like Gen Pop shaped my childhood. I watched that video more times than I can count. And I guess, like, what was the vibe when you guys were like, all right, let's make some videos to back up Technine here?
So a couple years into living in Utah, Blotto was our team manager. He ended up taking a job with Burton. So I ended up talking to Cole Taylor, who was still living in Colorado, and told him to move out, and he did. And he decided to get a video camera because I was shooting photos. And he just had this little, I think they were, what were they, VX 2000s back then? Those little dogs?
Yeah.
And so he got a VX 2000, and, we had this dope team. But a lot of them, it was hard to get their full attention because of, they're filming with Whitey. They're out with Andy Wright shooting photos, and we had to just demand like some time with them, and Cole's pretty good at that, I guess. So Cole, being a team manager, he's like, I'm not just going to be a team manager. I want to be out in the scene, So he started filming, and we were able to get time with Marco just because of our friendship, time with J2, time with Ali. Also, the filmers were down to give us some extra footage. Whitlake sent us all the footage of him in Represent, and we also had some new kids like Hebel, and we were able to get full time with those guys, And Cole and I sat down, and we were going to make a teaser for the trade show for Represent because we got a bunch of cool footage, and we knew we wanted to call it Represent. And we sit down to edit, and we were just like, shit, we don't know how to edit. And luckily, Nico Droz happened to be out staying with us, and he was just
Legend.
he's all super French, just like, get out of the way, I will show you how to edit. He sat down, basically, showed us how to edit, and we were able to make that first teaser. I think we spelled Represent wrong in the first teaser. But we went to the trade show, and people were hyped, and we were able to get because we had a lot of big-name riders in there, so we were able to get other sponsors to help pay for it because Technine didn't have that much money. I think Analog was a sponsor of the first one. So we were able to then go out the rest of that season. The trade shows used to be a little bit earlier back then when they were in Vegas. And we were able to get some funding for the movie Beyond Technine, and we had all the riders, so we were able to put out Represent and Gen Pop. And Nico showed us how to edit. So at that time, Cole and I split part for part, basically. And, you didn't have to get rights for music, so we were able to just use whatever we wanted. So it was really cool back at that time to be able to just pick a lot of rad songs and stuff we hadn't seen in other movies, and it wasn't all hip hop yet. It was kind of a mix.
Well, and that's a good talking point because that's what I remember. I remember, Technine had a bunch of hip hop centric kids, right? Like they wore baggy clothes. They were like smoking blunts on camera. You had MFM, but you also had Daryl and Hebel and riders that didn't necessarily do that. So I remember watching the videos being like, well, this dude's style is really dope, like to a rap song or whatever. But then you see like Hebel come on and you're like, whoa, this kid, like pants aren't quite as baggy, but he had just a different vibe. And I thought that was cool about Technine because some riders were just on the binding. Some were head to toe.
We had that one dude, Miami Thunder. Who
I remember that dude, yeah.
He was like a full mixture of tight pants with a baggy jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, we tried to run the gamut of it and have that mix. And, I mean, you have to be conscious because Technine was already a niche because it's a snowboarding brand. But then if it's all hip hop, it's like a niche in a niche. And you're already a niche with a binding company at first. So it's just like, how are we going to grow, you know? So you had to think about that and have some other people on the team like Whitlake and Daryl. And so I guess that's why we did that.
Mikey? Was Mikey ever on?
LeBlanc?
Yeah.
Nope, he wasn't
It was
on.
Road Drake.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
he had a
right,
Drake
yeah.
Pro model.
That's right.
But what about the first, one of the most iconic Technine bindings that sticks out to me is the Scotty Whitlake dual 2 different color binding.
Yeah, that was dope. That was all Scotty's idea. His first binding actually was brown because he wanted to be the color of poop with yellow logos, so it's poop and pee. And what's funny is Doman did that first artwork, and that's kind of the first artwork I think he did was the Technine.
That's how he got his start. Yep.
That's how he got his start with us doing that first Whitlake art, and then he went on to work with us the whole time, which was really cool. But then he did the black, one white, and that was fully his idea, and he pitched it to us. And, you know, I was very heavy into letting the riders, really pick the stuff they wanted any time we could let them, because that's how we started, you know, is having that outlet to be able to have these riders that knew what was going on. If you don't use that, you're blowing it, you know, and a lot of big companies don't do that, especially back then. So when a rider wants one black, one white, we're like, let's make one black, one white. And it was pretty sick.
I don't know if you touched on this, maybe briefly, but a lot of people don't know that you picked, I'll be hanging out with you and be like, oh, I picked that song. You picked a lot of the soundtrack, especially for the early Technine.
Yeah, for the early Technine songs, especially the non-hip-hop stuff, I wanted the movie to be a full mix, and Cole and I were both making it. So, yeah, I would pick a lot of the tracks as well. Until, I think 3 movies in, Cole took over the whole process, and we kind of went more, Cole wanted to go full hip-hop and have it actually DJ'd, which was pretty sick. Marco would do the soundtracks. And that's when it went all hip-hop. But I was kind of stoked when it was a mix, you know? I think we almost went too far to that hip-hop side, maybe.
Well, you found your niche.
Yeah, we found the people that supported the brand. There's so many kids with Technine tattoos and people that really backed.
In Japan, you guys were huge, right?
Dude, yeah, we would go to Japan, and it was awesome. They would fly us out there once a year because there was such a big following. I think Bradshaw, there was one time at one point where he was the highest selling product in Japan, over all the other brands, between 32 and Technine. He was just a juggernaut over there. Lucas.
Damn.
Yeah, they just, those guys used to do really good numbers with their pro model stuff over there, Lucas Magoon and Chris Bradshaw. But yeah, the Technine, the people of Japan really just love that hip hop style and the baggy look, I think, and really gravitated towards it, which was cool. So it was always a very good market for us.
All right, Stoney Budz, I think it's a good time to talk about a little transition, maybe into photography here. Before we get into that, we have a guest question from Blotto. Now, Blotto just dropped an incredible new book, all shot on iPhone, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. It's called Blotto's Phone Book. It's probably sold out, but if it's not, make sure you get one of these Bad Larrys and support Blotto, because Blotto kicks ass. And here we go.
Good morning, Bombhole. Good morning, listeners. Thanks for tuning in. Blotto here. I got a question for Stone. When I walked into the Technine office eons ago, handed over the camera gear and let you know I was moving to the East Coast, how'd you feel about becoming team photographer in an instant? Secondly, as you progressed with the camera in hand, when did it sink in you were on your way to a photography career? Really hyped to hear your story, Ethan. And thanks again, everybody, for tuning into the Bombhole. Appreciate y'all.
Blotto lived a lot of my story.
Yeah.
He was my roommate for many, many years. The camera, yeah, Blotto was our team. He was a team manager as well as the photographer. He had convinced, we had a meeting one day and he was like, I want to get a camera. You know, I'm out there with everybody. So we, through Technine, got him a camera. And he ended up getting the opportunity to be the Burton team manager. He was started as a team manager before he was a photographer. And it was kind of something that he couldn't turn down. You know, it was a lot of money. It's Burton. You know, it's a hard thing to say no to. So when he came back from his meeting in Burlington, he just handed me the camera. Just take this. This is yours now. And because it was bought by Technine, you know. So all of a sudden, I was going to fill that role. And I guess I was kind of ready for it as we got out to Utah. The jumps got a bit bigger.
How's that E-roll looking at this time?
Dude, the E-roll one, I think I did an E-roll on some giant jump behind Marco and like twisted my ankle. Still hurts to this day. Trying to jump like jumps that Marco was jumping at the time, just like coming home with a stiff neck. Every day from cartwheeling those huge ass. Marco was building big stuff. So yeah, I was just like, dude, I'm obviously not as good as Mark Frank Montoya, you know? And we have this business, Technine. So if I'm able to be out with the riders still, I still felt like I was part of it. You know, that's the best part of it is being out, building jumps and hanging and seeing the progression happen. So when Blotto handed me the camera, I was stoked. And he handed it over, gave me a bunch of tips and kind of showed me how to use it. And then I just kind of started going out. And at the same time, when we started Represent, you know, Cole was always shooting video. I mean, you have to if you're making a movie and you're going to make it happen. So I was out there for every session. So I just started stacking photos. And I was lucky at the time, Kevin Zacher and Nate Christensen, they would let me kind of shadow them to learn how to shoot photos, basically. Because back then it was film. It wasn't as easy as Digi. There was a little bit more to it. You got to use the right film in the right conditions and use a light meter, and there was just more to it than you can look at the back of the photo now and know if it looks good or not. So those guys were really cool about letting me come out with them, and it was like big dog sessions. You know, Kevin was one of the biggest photographers, and Nate Christensen was one of the biggest photographers at the time. So I was able to shoot with like the best people until they started seeing my photos get good, and then they're kind of like, man, maybe you got to start going out on your own a little bit now. And so that was, I mean, maybe like a season or maybe a season of shadowing those guys, and yeah, just learning the ropes. And then from there, I just started shooting a bunch of photos. And I think the other part was, when did I realize it was going to become something? I mean, I don't think I ever even thought about that. Once I got the camera, it was just like head down, let's stack, because it's kind of like you feel like you're a rider getting clips, you know? You get that clip high, and you shoot a good photo, you're just, all right, what's next? But I think when you first start, you kind of shoot a photo and you realize how you blew it almost. You're kind of just like, oh, man, I should have done this, whatever that might be. And so then you're more excited to go out and fix that and shoot a better photo. And then you want a better photo. And then you want a better trick, and you just like, it all of a sudden becomes a drug almost. You're just like, oh, this is something you just need to do, and you just put your head down and stack. So I never really even thought about that other part.
Well, and I've heard like legendary stories about like the Technine work ethic. Like, you guys used to hit it real hard, you and Cole.
Yeah, Cole, I mean, we just wanted everything to be dope. So we were in a time in Salt Lake where there was a lot going on. You know, Whitey was out there making the best movies of the time, and Andy Wright was out there with these dudes just getting the sickest photos. So there was, you just want to be on that level, especially when you have a brand that's on the same stage. You want yours to look just as good. So I think that's where the work ethic came from, is that everything just had to be very professional. And it wasn't going to run in the mags if it wasn't either, you know, and the video wasn't going to be up to par with the brand that had this certain reputation. As he kind of got into making videos, like he had a certain vision for his cinematography and a certain look he had to have. And I did with my photos as well. So I guess we're getting after it.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Is you're also taking photos, submitting them to the mags, and then you're also taking photos and laying them out in ads.
Yeah.
So there's probably a whole thought process of getting better, looking at them.
It's got to be on the same stage as Burton, this company that's spending a lot of money, or whoever else was killing it at the time, or else we were going to look not as good, and then we shouldn't even be paying. You had to pay good money for the ads, you know?
Now, I have a sidebar question for any person that's trying to get into photography. You know, we get messages, you get messages, I'm sure, all the time. But
yeah.
What's your biggest advice for somebody that's trying to figure it out?
I think the biggest advice is just get out there and shoot every day. Even if you don't have the people that are on par yet, you just got to master your craft. But then it's also important to get the people. So once you master the craft a bit, I think you just got to get to the resort and meet the pros, say what's up to them. And a lot of these guys don't have photographers right now. I think there's a shortage. So if you're cool, I think and by cool, you don't have to be like cool. Like, you just have to be chill and and make sure you're working at first, because you're not gonna be able to do a parim search at first.
The parim is non-existent.
The parim is non-existent at first.
You're a shovel god on day one.
If you're a shovel god, that's actually going to get you more respect in how you shoot your photos.
Yep. Yep.
So be that shovel dude. Be the first one there. Like, really show these dudes that you mean business, because these guys are serious and they're putting their lives on the line. Like, don't take that for granted, like, just be there for them, and don't. There's been some photographers too that push people to do stuff that's not cool. Don't do that, like, don't, just not just for the photo. Like, these guys have legs that they need to walk later in life.
I've been in the landing of some street spots, like, just destroyed, and I look over at you and you're just like, you got this, bud.
Well, with guys like you, I know you're not going to give up.
Already like zooming in.
A guy like you is. I've learned when I'm out with dudes on your level, 95% of the time, you're going to get the trick.
Yep.
You know what you're doing. So you just got to, like, you got this, like, give you the confidence, because there's not many times you walk away without it.
There's some
a
riders,
pro that on that level.
There's some riders too that don't want that encouragement,
No.
and you got to know
And
that.
you know that.
You have to know to just shut the fuck up, and let them do their thing.
And that's a big part of it too. Knowing when to not say a word.
Yep.
Don't even look at them. If you look at them, like, sometimes I've been in situations, you look at someone, they're gonna, like, say something mean maybe because they're, like, in this zone. You just look away real quick. You just gotta know when to be there, be funny, not be funny, don't say a word. Be just
also, I think there's also something to finding your crew and finding your people, because, like, think about us, like, it was like, if I'm going on a trip, I'm calling Buds, and you're like, and we always had a great dynamic where it's like, we know the drill, we've been on a million trips, I know you're gonna kill the photo, and we're gonna have a great time in the freaking van. Most importantly, we're gonna have the best time in the van.
And that you gotta have that with the riders, or else they're not gonna call you for that trip. And they also sometimes maybe go out and find some spots and hit up riders. That helps get you in there too. But most of all, just be chill.
All right, Buds, let's talk about the Bombhole of the week.
Let's get into it. We're talking about Volcom Zip Tech.
What is Zip Tech, Stoney Buds?
Zip Tech is a patented tech system brought to you by the good folks at Volcom that helps you you zip your pants and attach to your jacket, and it's going to keep the winter elements out. You know what it does for me?
What does it do?
It actually keeps my pants up.
Oh,
they're
wow.
always sagging a little too deep. You see me running around in the streets.
It's like a sag protector.
Sag protector, winter elements out, keeping you dry. If you're wearing cotton underneath that jacket, that cotton's going to stay dry. You're going to be out longer. You're going to have a good time on the slopes.
Now, what Volcom riders use this? Do you know?
Every rider, if they're smart.
Okay.
I'll tell you that. But the ones that probably do cartwheels out there in the powder because they don't land their jumps, guys like Pat Moore.
Yeah, Pat Moore's known for violently tomahawking. That's absolutely right.
Markless Cleveland, I don't know if he ever falls.
He doesn't need it. He
probably
removes it. He probably actually removes the technology because he doesn't fall.
Now, this is the final episode of Zip Tech, and there's big news. You're not just going to get a standard pro pack from us, or a standard
prize pack.
Prize pack, thank you.
What are you going to get?
You're actually going to win a snowboard.
Wow.
The guys at Volcom are anteing up a snowboard, and it's on.
So what do they got to do to win this board, Buds?
What you want to do is go through and post your favorite bail or your funnest looking bail on Instagram, and you're going to hashtag Volcom Bombproof, and we are going to pick the winners who's going to get a snowboard, and it's going to be amazing.
Okay. And then also don't forget to tag Bombhole and who else?
Volcom.
Okay. Godspeed. Go bail now. All right. I think we got a good Patreon question, Bird, that pertains to photography and whatnot.
Huge thanks to all of our Patreon members. Y'all are the best. This is from Danielle Rittman. Eastone, why is it important for snowboarding culture to still have photography projects and print media when social media is exploding as a way to reach larger audiences?
That's a good question. Is that funny?
Yeah. Well, first of all, that's a great question.
It's a deep question. It takes a little reflection.
Yeah, print as in magazines and stuff.
Yep. Magazines, books, whatever they may be, you know?
You know, the answer to that is it's the culture. Instagram is just here and gone in a second, and it doesn't really give you time for your photo to marinate and be seen. And it's so small too. It almost changes the way you're going to shoot if you're shooting for Instagram. those close-up photos do so much better on Instagram. If you shoot some huge feature, it's going to be like a little speck on your phone, and it just doesn't do it justice. Print is really a place for you to go and see all the images in one place. And without, like, when I thought magazines were going to die last year, when Snowboarder went out of business, Bridges hadn't started Slush, there was just Torment, really, which is a dope publication. But only one magazine, like, that's crazy. You know, it's I was bummed. It seemed like
Me too.
there's going to be no photographers then. Like, we've already lost so many. There's way less. And so to see Pat figure out Slush and Blotto putting out a book and Yosh put out a cool book, Mike Yoshida. Yeah, you should get an air horn. These projects are awesome and very needed, and it's just for the culture. Without it, snowboarding, I mean, where are brands like gonna, I mean, with us, obviously, they have a place to advertise, but what else, what other places is them to go? You know, it's gonna all go to Google and go on Instagram, and it's just much needed for the culture.
Well, and ultimately, you know, an iconic photo that gets posted on Instagram, how's a kid going to see that 15 years later to do their research?
It's
Like,
just
you do need that tangible object that you can, like, toss on a shelf and grab whenever you want and just kind of flip through.
Yeah, now as we have these podcasts, I get DMs where somebody will, like, send an image we've mentioned because they have the magazine still. I mean, at my house, I don't even know how many magazines I have, thousands of them stacked up. And years from now, that's going to be so dope, you know? Looking back at that, you're not going to be able to look back at your phone. They're going to be gone. Everyone talks about the cloud. I don't even know what the cloud is.
Dude,
what is the cloud?
No clue, man. That's why it's called the cloud. What is an actual cloud?
Yeah, what?
It's like air and water.
And are my images in this cloud? Like,
Yeah.
am I going to, as far as I know, they're gone. I think the cloud's just a way to get money out of us.
Yeah.
So, it's so needed just for the future. And, I mean, you look around our office and our set right here, the images are what keeps the vibe, and without that, you know, snowboarding is going to be lost. So the more print we have, the better.
It's a great question by Danielle Rittman.
Great question, great answer.
Amazing answer.
Now, going back to the trajectory of your career, you're sharpening your teeth, you're shooting photos, you're getting better. And then at what point are you just kind of like, all right, things are rolling. I'm a as you would say, photographer.
I don't think I ever had that thought.
Oh, you never had? Yeah.
No.
But what was that? So, like, getting into, like, shooting for Snowboarder and making it a career, like, because you started, when was your first published photo? When was your first cover? Those type of things.
You know, I think my first published photo was in Snowboarder, and it was a Bobby Meeks, a photo, maybe a sequence. Sequai.
Yep.
From Seek Luch.
A Seek Luch, yes.
Sequential.
From Brighton. And I was hyped. I can't remember which photo editor. It might have been Kovala.
What did the photo credit read? Were you Eastone by this point in time?
You know what? Eastone, I started using that on the mic when I used to rock house parties in Jamaican dance hall. And I killed it.
Still do.
Well, I haven't been on the mic in a while, but yes, I hope I would anyways. I feel like I get possessed, but that's where Eastone came from. More of a rap name, I guess. And so I had that by then, and so I think first published photo probably read Eastone, but I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look at that.
Now, we're going to have to just go back over this possessed reggae dance hall guy.
That I just
I've
glazed
seen
over
it.
real
I've
quick.
seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it as well. Yeah, Lithuania. Where'd you see it?
I saw it in Bend, Oregon.
Yep.
Karaoke session. We convinced the bartender to lock the door, let us chill there. Eddie Wall was there, I believe. I remember Eddie's jaw hitting the floor, like when it started.
Once I get that mic too, it's hard to get it away from me.
Yeah,
I can't even do karaoke because I just end up doing my own shit.
I remember the line "Eastone come with the thunder." That was the opening line, straight up. I'll never forget it.
Still remember the line.
Yeah.
So, do you think you were like, you know, lived on an island somewhere, like in a past life? In a previous life?
It's possible because the whole mic thing is wild. I have to have like a certain amount of beers in me, and I have to have a crowd, and because I can't really, I don't know, just get the excitement of the crowd. So I need like a house full of people, or maybe even I've been in Japan where like on a concert venue even, and maybe in Russia, a concert venue. So I need people, and I just I get possessed, and I don't even know where it comes from because it's not like I write down lyrics or practice. Like in that time, I think it was in Japan or Russia, I battled like 8 MCs in a row on stage. And it was awesome. But yeah, it's just something that happened. And I think if I was a kid growing up now, I'd probably be like, would have pursued rap maybe.
Yeah.
Because I was actually really good at it. And but I felt a little weird. I felt like a culture vulture doing like Jamaican dance hall. Mm-hmm. So I kind of backed off from it eventually and just only did it in a party scenario.
I mean, it sounds to me like a snowboarder, right? That Jenny flips on, the lights turn on, the filmer's ready, the photographer's ready, and you just like some riders need that.
And they do it.
They need it for to get the trick, right?
Yeah, true, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking at Bombhole Cup, we'll hog tie you to like a pole and we'll just pour liquor down your throat.
Yep.
And then once we'll get a crowd to mic going and like at the end of the contest, just kind of like stand you up there, like kind of like wobbling, like doing the hiccups and just like let you go, you know?
What's funny is like once I start getting boozing me, I like fiend for it. If there's a DJ, like you can't even get me away from it. I'm like, give me that mic. I gotta get that mic.
I will say you are hands down top 3 Hall of Fame partier when it's on.
Mm-hmm.
When it's on, it's on. It's fun.
Yeah, flip that switch.
Well, that's a great segue into the Pub Beer Crapshoot. Let's talk about our sponsor, Pub Beer here, T-Bird.
Speak of the devil
here. Oh, so T-Bird's cracking a delicious ice cold pub beer. How is that thing?
Goes down so smooth.
Wow.
So smooth.
So their motto is cheap, fun beer. Did you know that, Bird?
I did know that. It's cheap beer. It's fun to drink and tastes delicious. I'm down.
Absolutely. Well, that being said, let's get into the Pub Beer Crapshoot.
Welcome to the Pub Beer Crapshoot.
Clackety, clackety.
All right, we're going to roll some dice.
Let's go. 4.
4. What is one of your worst bails?
Worst bails?
Ooh.
I don't ever fall, dog. I don't have the memory for that, dog. Your worst bail?
Okay, and well, we're just gonna sub in question 6 in addition to that, or 7. Who's your favorite person to party with?
Holy shit!
It's a great question.
I mean, there's been some legendary people to party with over the years, right?
Marky Mark.
Yeah, he might be my favorite person to party with. I mean, that night was one of my favorite party nights. I would say when T-Bird was partying, he was one of my favorite people to party with.
We had some fun times.
Yeah, but he's retired.
Yeah, I'm retired now.
I mean, I'm pretty much retired too, so it's all right. But yeah, I might go T-Bird on him.
Wow.
Let's go.
Bird and air horn for that.
Can I get an air horn?
Yeah, that's huge.
We had some good times, man. We had a lot of fun.
Back before T-Bird was shooting photos, or he was just starting shooting photos, he was able to come on the trip as the writer, and I was the photographer.
I was just talking to Chris about this, I think last night.
Yeah.
Like those days, not trying to be old head. They don't exist anymore.
Old head alert.
They were awesome.
They were awesome.
I would literally go there with no camera. I think I had a Canon ELPH, and I was just the writer.
He had a pen. That's all he had to bring. His board and a pen.
It was unbelievable. And we went to some crazy places. I mean, Turkey, Bulgaria, Estonia.
Yeah. And that those days are done. They ended up having to downsize, and the photographer has to write the story, or the writer, the writer.
Yep.
But man, good party moments.
What about that night in Estonia where those homies, the distributors, threw us a party?
That was such a good night. One of the best nights of my life.
And why is that?
Mark Frank was on the trip, and he stayed home. And we were, our guide happened to be the biggest rapper in Estonia. He's the only person in Estonia, I think, to make it on MTV.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Rest in peace. He was a legend.
He passed away of skin cancer, like, really soon after our trip. It was kind of crazy.
Well, that one day he went to the doctor's office to
had
get
it checked.
Yeah.
And he was gone, like, within a year.
Yep.
Just get your skin checked if you got any issues is the moral. But he threw this big party for us. And we walk in the door, and I'm wearing a bunch of Technine stuff. And someone yells, MFM! And I just go, yes! And then I got whisked off.
Dude, literally, I was right behind Eastone, and they go, Montoya! And Eastone puts his arms up, and he was gone. Like, he went up to, like, the VIP lounge the whole night.
Gone. And at almost every trip you go on, the community takes you in like that, and it's such an incredible thing.
Yeah.
And it's just it's priceless. It makes for the best party nights ever.
Because they're all shredders. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't that they were even fanning out. They were just so psyched that
You come to their country.
We would even go to their country to shoot street stuff. You know, that was one of the funnest trips ever.
Cool thing to experience. And it's not because they're fanning out. They're just so hyped you recognize their country and their snowboard scene.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple of those nights in some different countries. Remember when those guys got naked and did the
Abbey Road?
Abbey Road for him and I? What country was that?
That was Bulgaria.
Bulgaria.
Yeah.
A bunch of dudes that were on vacation from the UK.
Yeah, from London.
They wanted us to take their picture doing Abbey Road, the Beatles.
Walk across the street in the crosswalk.
And they just go to T-Bird like, should we take our clothes off, mate?
I was like, yes.
Yes, you should for sure. And they all got buck naked and did Abbey Road.
Fun fact, that story is now in the cloud.
It's in the cloud.
Yeah, it's up there. It's somewhere in there.
It's literally.
Which means it's gone forever.
Yeah.
Well, earlier, what you were just talking about on our Patreon interview, I thought you had a very eloquent answer. And we asked you, what is your biggest inspiration?
And it's the snowboard community worldwide. What I've learned, because I've done a lot of international features. I've tried to do one a year when I worked at Snowboarder. And I want to make, that's what I want my book to be, maybe, is like to enter every different city I went to, kind of put every international city put into a book. But we've gone to all these amazing cities, and every single one of them, somebody basically halts their life, and I don't even know how they do it. They just jump in the van. Sometimes they even drive the van, and they drop everything and just make sure you have a good time. And they introduce you to the local shop, the local kids that rip, take you into their life, sometimes their house, to let you crash at the house, and they open the door for you for that country and just show you what that country's all about. And it's just because of snowboarding, nothing else. It's not because they're fanning out like we were saying. It's just because they're so hyped to show you their scene and their slice of snowboarding. And what's funny is one time I got a call from a Japanese magazine that these Japanese shredders were coming over. And they just asked me if I could maybe give them a list of spots. And they showed up. And I picked them up from the airport with Lucas Magoon and Chris Bradshaw, and spent the whole week with these dudes and showed them every spot and shredded with them. And I did it because when I go to Japan, they do that for me. And I wanted to give back one time, you know.
I was going to say, it's all reciprocal.
Yeah, all reciprocal.
They do it for you because you would do it for them. It's like it's a respect thing that, like, you're coming to my zone, I'm going to show you the time of your life.
Yeah.
And when you go to Japan, they're going to show you the time of your life.
Now that I'm older, it's a little harder to show them the party side and all that, but hopefully the young people are doing that. And I'm sure, like, the Dust Box is doing that for people. But yeah, every single country, people just, when you go to Italy, they're showing you their uncle that makes wine, and then they give you bottles of that wine. In Russia, the kid had never driven before because they always take the subway, but he drove our van, almost killed us. But it's just they do anything and everything for you. And some of these guys still hit me up, which is sick, on DMs and all that. But let's send an air horn out for every guy that ever has taken a crew out, because those people are the best.
Absolutely. Well, and props to Technine, because I remember Technine was always at the forefront of, like, finding the new spots. And because of that, you went to some, like, wild locations. I remember, like, you know, I was sitting at the desk as the associate editor of Snowboarder. Oh yeah, Eastone just went to Poland, and then they went to Estonia. Like, you guys were always finding really interesting zones to go ride.
Yeah, back before global warming, unfortunately, there was a lot more cities you could go to.
Yep.
And I think we were the first crew to go to Moscow. And Chris got a taste of it. Went to Lithuania.
Kazakhstan,
but that was after Technine,
yeah.
but with kind of the T9
the
crew.
Technine crew, yeah.
We went to Lithuania, and yeah, just we try to go just hit that new spot in those Euro cities, man. They have the best shit to hit.
I got a perfect question that is right along the lines of the topic we're talking about, and this is from none other than Cole Taylor,
the big dog,
your partner in crime. Here we go.
Yo, what up, Stone? It's Cole. I miss you, bro. So we've traveled all over the world together, shared tons of amazing memories, and I just want to know what's your number one pick for a street trip that we've been on together, and also which trip provided the best food, because we both love to eat, and we both love the experience of breaking bread in other countries. So I want to know what's your number one.
So number one trip or best food?
I think that's a two-parter.
It's a two-parter.
Yeah.
Man, every trip was so sick because they're all so different and so rad, and the cities are so cool to go to. So it's hard to pick that one without reflecting for a moment.
You can't really Louis Vito us.
I'm not going to Louis Vito you.
You got to pick one.
I'll start with food because I know that one right away. Italy, without a doubt.
Yep.
I mean, Italy is known for their cuisine, but we had this setup where we were staying in, where'd they have the Olympics? Turin?
Torino, yeah.
Torino.
Yep.
So we were in Torino, and it's like this mountain town, and the city closes down early there. They kind of got different rules for eating over in Europe. Like every time you go, it takes like 3 hours for dinner and even lunch. But we would go shoot all day, and by the time we got home to the city, everything was closed. So we were so bummed. But we met this dude who owned a restaurant. His name was Rocco, and we'd call him. He'd be like, "Call me before, like when you're on your way home." And this dude would cook like a family-style Italian dinner, something different every time. And we would just call him and be like, "Hey, we're on our way." And we'd get into this restaurant, and every dinner was just amazing. And Lucas liked his French fries, so the dude would always make French fries for Lucas McCoon. So Lucas would just have a huge plate of spaghetti and French fries. But then Cole and I, he would always just have some sick local dish for us and like wine that was made right there. And it was incredible. The guy was like family with us. It was awesome. So that was the food. For the best trip, I might say probably that first trip to Moscow was very memorable just because that place was crazy. The food was horrible. But just being like seeing something that's just so different than we're used to, and being in this city that was just crazy. Like you would drive for I don't know, like 3 hours, and we'd be like, "Where are we now?" Moscow. And then you drive like another 3 hours the other way. What city is this? Moscow. And then you'd see all these people walking around. They're only wearing like black clothes, and then you see them in breakfast drinking vodka. Just be like, and we'd be like, "Why are they drinking all the time? It's so cold here. You have to." And it's just so different that I think that was one of the top trips. And also because I battled a bunch of MCs one day on the mic in Moscow. That was pretty dope. They were rapping in Russian. I was doing Jamaican dance hall. But we were able to get a taste of like I said, our guide never drove, and he took us on the subways. And the subways in Moscow, they made them like super, super dope because they want the working people to be uplifted. So when you go down in the subway, there's like all like these murals that are handmade that are just like the most incredible thing. So it's cool to like see all that. And I remember we were with Stevie Bell, and he sees this black dude, sees him from across the way, and like makes his way to him and hugs him. And Stevie's all taken aback. He's like, "You're the first black man I've seen in 10 years or something." It was just like, holy, it was just cool moments like that were just really eye-opening of how the world's so different, you know?
Love that. And even along those lines, I love how when you start talking about like the experience of the trip, a lot of times people are on the trip, they're like, "Well, I landed a back lip and I did a front 270 and they forget to take in all the things that you're talking about. And that's what snowboarding, the gift it gives you. You get to go to these places, and sure, you get to do a front 270, you get to back 7 a jump. That's great. But you also get to experience all this culture. And that's what always stood out to me being on trips with you. Like even recalling trips like when we went to Kazakhstan, you're like in detail, remember like the fucking horse milk or whatever. What was it? Like
that was, wasn't it made from horse milk? Yeah.
Yeah.
They would milk the horse and they put it in a bag, and to get it to ferment, everyone who walks by their house has to punch it.
Yes.
So when you see a bag hanging at somebody's crib, you got to punch it.
How do you milk a horse?
Is it semen?
Was it horse semen?
It might be semen. I don't know.
Semen.
Who knows? But
it's called kumis.
Yeah.
So maybe it is cum. I don't know. Were we drinking horse semen? I hope not, dude.
No, but it's funny, like going back to when the magazine could send me to write and Stone to shoot photos. I remember never really writing about the action.
Yeah.
Because my philosophy was that's what the photos are for. E-Stone's photos are going to tell the action story.
Yep.
So I could always find a really cool angle of a experience that we had together or a person that I met, and you could like go off in a different direction with the story. You could talk more about the location, than like the spots.
You taught me that with writing.
It was a really like beautiful time in snowboard journalism. It was cool.
So I also remember like our trip to Kazakhstan. I was every one of them was like the best.
Yeah.
You know? So it's so hard to pinpoint when our trips were the best.
I remember talking to Stone. Every time he would come home from a trip, I would ask him like, "Hey, how was the trip?" And he would always talk about the food. I remember the butter steak. Remember the butter steak?
Oh, the butter steak.
I call Stone. I'm like, "Yo, how was Japan?" He's like, "Dude, Cole and I got the most banger butter steak."
It's at the Korean hibachis in Japan.
What
they
is a
serve
butter?
up this super dope high end. It's probably that what's this? No, the Kobe.
Kobe
probably
beef.
some Kobe beef.
Yeah.
And they put it on there with a bunch of butter on it. It comes like raw with butter, and you cook it yourself. Melts in the mouth, this butter steak.
Oh, man, that's making me hungry.
Let's order up some butter steak. Yeah, but all those trips are dope.
All right, Stoney, we're going to hit you with another Patreon question. This one's coming from Cody Ferner. Back in the Technine days, if there was one rider you could have put on the team but didn't have the chance to, who would that rider be?
We got every rider we wanted, dog. We had Mark Frank,
Was there
Tarquin.
anybody you had your eye on that you would have been like,
shit, man. If we wanted them, we got them. Because we didn't. I'm talking back in the binding days. It was easy. Anyone who wanted bindings. We had people that weren't even on the team list that were big dogs.
Yep.
But let's think here. Someone we'd always wanted on the team but couldn't get. Shit, I'm coming up on a blank here, dog. Cole was the TM. I'm sure there's someone that he probably tried to get on the team and it didn't work out. But I mean, trying to think, what years of Technine would we go with here?
I mean, we're talking the whole
kit, maybe
the
board
whole
binding,
gamut.
outerwear.
Yeah.
What year was that?
2008.
2008.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 05 to 08.
Who was hot back in those days? I mean, nobody really comes to mind. I'm going to be straight up honest.
That's all good.
Yeah.
That's chill. I mean, you guys had Bradshaw and Gooner, and those are two riders that, like, I don't know if you can really state to the audience, like, how influential those two riders were to the brand.
They were also a handful, too, so it was hard to be on them. You know what I mean? It was hard to get. Oh, actually, I got an answer for someone we wanted back in the day.
Who is it?
We weren't able to get Paxson. We wanted Paxson on the team. I mean, and a lot of people listening to this probably don't even know who he is, but back in that time, Johnny Paxson was going places.
Johnny P was the man.
Yeah, and we actually tried to get him on, and it didn't work out. And in hindsight, maybe it would have worked out better for him if he got on.
But you guys still brought him up.
Yeah, we still ended up shooting with him and shooting him with the video and photos. But yeah, so he was probably the answer of a guy that we tried to get on and it didn't work out. But so Lucas and Bradshaw, yeah, they were really something special. Having those guys on the team and traveling with them was just the best. Bradshaw was a little tough because it was hard to get him out of Big Bear, which is probably a thing for all of his sponsors. Like every year they would beg us to get Bradshaw to Japan. And he sometimes we even book him a ticket and he just wouldn't go. Because weed's not legal over there. And that was something very important to him on trips to function, to snowboard well. But Lucas was always down to go, and they just loved him over there. And he ended up meeting the president of Maneuver Line, who was our distributor. And this guy's in a suit and can't even speak English. And him and Lucas were just best friends. They couldn't even talk to each other. And this guy probably didn't even snowboard. He was just a businessman. Just loved Lucas Magoon. And those guys were just larger than life. Their personalities, their style, their riding. And to be able to have do Lucas's first pro models and all that. And he always had such good ideas. You sit him and Dolman down. Lucas would describe an idea to me and it hardly even make sense. And then him and Dolman would just create the most banger graphics, some of my favorite graphics. And yeah, those guys were a treat.
And how are you balancing being a senior for Snowboarder and also a company owner? Being on the inside at Snowboarder, I always thought you did it perfectly. You did it really, really well working for both brands.
Well, on the Technine side, it was nice because it was such an advantage that I was able to get the coverage needed for our team. I mean, some brands couldn't even pay money to make that happen, the amount of coverage we were able to get them. And so that was always seen as a great asset. And so no one gave me too much grief when I had to also go shoot other people. And in order to make it work for Snowboarder, I couldn't just shoot the Technine team. But at one point, Technine was like a conglomerate of brands too, so it was a lot more people I was able to work with when we had a Technine section, and we almost even at one point we tried to work out something with Danny Cass and Grenade involved, but that didn't work out. But we had like a conglomerate of brands, so there was more people. Simone's brand was involved, and so that was a lot of people. I could go with like Simone and JP and Jeremy and Sexton on a trip, and that was also working for Technine because Nomis was part of the brand family. And so it all would just work out, and so I would have to, for Snowboarder, shoot other people, and that was understood at Technine, and kind of double dipping.
Yeah, smart.
Little bit of double dipping.
Now, you've shot so many photos over the years of so many incredible riders. Now, who's your favorite person to shoot and why?
Damn. I'm going to go with Lucas Magoon. Quick answer.
That's actually the correct answer. That's 100%
I could have went MFM.
That would have also been.
That would also been, but because Marco was dope, and in the early years we traveled the world together, went to a lot of dope spots. But Lucas, man, he's one of those dudes when the camera's on him, he just shines. And even just shooting a lifestyle of him, he just comes alive when you point the lens at him. And his snowboarding was just next level at the time, so it's just so easy to get hammers of him. And he's just so fun to cruise around with because he's such a wild dude, so he'd be my favorite.
Going back to MFM real quick, this is just me personally. There's so much like legend and lore behind MFM on a snowboard. It's hard to describe like how talented and powerful that dude was. Was there ever a time where you saw Marco do something like absolutely batshit on a snowboard that you just didn't think was even possible?
I mean, for sure, but the first time I met Marco at Vail, he showed up to Vail and he had this ponytail down to his ass. And you see this Mexican with like the most attitude of any dude you'd ever seen. And you can like hear him coming a mile away, just yelling and yipping and yapping. And I seen him do an ollie that was probably like 6 feet high. And I was just like, dude, who the fuck is this guy? And then later that night, we met him at a party, and it was Mark Frank. And so that, I just knew that dude was something special just the second you see him, you know? And then over the years shooting with him, some of those just big ollies he would do. Even in like, you get into Alaska, he'll just go off a cornice and do some giant ollie, no grab with just the biggest one you'd ever seen. And I'd say some of those were probably just amazing. Just the style, anything he did, he just looked dope.
Great answer. Now, I know over the years you spent so much time going over to Japan, Buds, right? Like that's like your home away from home.
Probably been there like, I don't even, uncountable times maybe, 12, 13 times.
Now, there's one particular instance with Jeffy.
Yes.
And do you want to talk about that situation?
I'm down. I never really even told this story in full, probably. But yeah, that's a story we can get into.
Yeah.
So we were in Japan, and it's kind of weird, man. I blacked this out for a long time until maybe even last week, like the full story of what happened because it was so wild. We were in Japan, and I didn't know this until last week. It was for the Toyota Open or something, and sickest day. Marco won the U.S. Open or the Toyota Open, which I just remembered last week. It was huge, like this giant contest that pretty much every pro was there. We're in Main Island, Japan, and Marco wins this contest. Ends up being Blue's birthday, so we went and just had the sickest night. And I had never really become good friends with Jeffy. He was best friends with all my friends, but we had never really hung out. And so that night, all of a sudden, we just started hanging out, and we like clicked. Kind of that what's that movie with Will Ferrell when they become Step Brothers? That moment, like we just became best friends. We pretty much had that moment, and we were up super late at night, partying for Blue's birthday, and I think it ended up being Jeffy, Blue, and myself were the last three men standing, pretty much. It's probably like, I don't know, well into the night, like 3 a.m. or something. Blue goes to bed. I had been filming everything that night on like a VHX, I think, or even smaller, just a little mini camera. Jeffy asked me to film him. There is, it's not a spiral staircase. It's like a square one, so it goes like down a half floor and around, but it's all open in the middle. That makes sense. So he asked me to film him kind of slide on his butt down the spiral staircase, but we were on the 6th floor, so we were pretty high up, but it was literally like five stairs, 7 stairs maybe, because it's like a half floor. So he does so, and I film him, and he catches his butt on the closeout and falls into the spiral staircase, or the square staircase, and falls 6 floors down. And obviously, like, I heard him kind of bang around like pinball down there, basically. So I ran down to the bottom, and man, I'll never forget the image of just the blood. Sorry.
It's all good, buddy.
I didn't think I was going to cry. I thought I was past crying on it.
It's okay, bud.
Yeah, it's part of it, man.
It's okay, bud.
It was like 20 years ago. I thought I was able to tell it. But yeah, the blood, it was crazy. Just coming out from his head. And I knew he was dead, like then. They tried to do like resuscitation, but like I could see that he was gone, like leaving. But I told him I had to leave him, and let me pull it together for a second.
It's okay, bud.
Take your time.
It's okay.
I got this.
You got this. Yep.
So I told him I had to leave him and go get help because obviously I was the only one there. I think first I made a shitload of noise because I knew Blue was probably still up, and or I might have even ran up I ran back up the 6 floors and banged on Blue's door, blamed on Marco's door, like screaming bloody murder, pretty much, and told those guys to go down to him, you know, and then I ran to the front desk and had them call the ambulance. And, you know, it took them a while to come, and they still, like, I know Blue tried to resuscitate him, but, I mean, there was so much blood. There was no way with a head injury like that, and so far, you know, it's like, I mean, how far is 6 floors? That's like
60 feet.
Yeah, it's like 60 feet. There's no way. So, unfortunately, they still, like, resuscitate him and did the work on him, and Billy was staying somewhere else, his brother, so they had to call him and get him there, which we did. And, I mean, everyone was staying at the same hotel. So there was, like, I know, like, DCP and Roman were there trying to help them because they were on the same team together. Marco had us all, like, saying a prayer. Blotto was there. Just every homie, pretty much. I remember Ika was, like, shit, he was probably, like, just a kid. Like, I think every time I saw Ika for, like, the next 10 years, like, every time he saw me, he'd just start crying because it was so damaging, you know, like everyone seeing someone pass. And so he basically, you know, he wasn't going to make it. He passed away. I mean, I think they finally pronounced him dead at the hospital. I think Bjorn and his brother, like, rode with him there. But it was before that because I think you have to do resuscitation when an ambulance shows up. So he didn't make it. And what was crazy is the next day, or even that next morning, the police told me not to leave because I was the only one with him. So they were like, we just need you to stay in Japan, basically, until further notice. So some very nice lady, like, helped me translate with the police. I had to sit down and get interrogated by, like, I think, like, 12 police. And it was crazy because I was basically in shock. And the police interrogated me, and I told the whole story, and they were just like, yeah, don't leave, because they, you know, they have to look at it as murder or what's going on. And I finally remembered I had filmed it, and so I just gave them the tape. I never watched it. I gave them the tape, and then they saw it and saw what happened, so they were like, all right, you're good. So we were able to, I was able to then leave there. An interesting story, I guess, Billy told me this at his funeral. They gave Billy, like, his effects after, like, all his stuff, and his watch was ticking and then it ticked the whole way until they pulled into his driveway, and then it stopped ticking when he got home, which is kind of crazy. afterwards, there was this great ceremony for him in Mammoth, and it was super cool. Billy invited me out there to stay with them and all that, so I went out there and gave them the camera, and no one ever watched it. I think he said he destroyed it, but then I think they maybe have it, but just never watched it, just put it on the side because it's such a gnarly thing. So I gave him the tape or whatever, just so that would never be a thing, nobody needs to see, I guess.
Did you actively notice the process of you just kind of burying that?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, my wife told me for so long. You know, it was crazy, actually. She was at home, and at the time difference, someone posted online that Jeffy had passed away, and she knew I was at the same place he was at. So she called me that night, and just it was gnarly.
Yep.
And but yeah, she would tell me that I would full PTSD, just wake up screaming, or not screaming, but yelling and crying, and just in my sleep, just gnarly. But yeah, that's pretty much what happened over there.
Yeah, I gotta. Yeah, sorry, buds.
Kind of like that story you always hear about people going off, having fun, but you know what's cool is a long time after, Billy, I felt maybe resented me or couldn't talk to me, and last week I hit him up to tell him. I mean, we ended up getting I don't know how many years ago, maybe 4 years ago or something. We just happened to be put next to each other on an airplane, and we're able to sit and talk, and we had this great conversation. And I think it was good for both of us, because we'd I'd see him around, we wouldn't really say what's up to each other, and it could have just been me. I have no idea, but it could have also been him being how come you didn't stop him? Weren't you were there with him? Why didn't you tell him not to do that? But last week he was just dude, we all know Jeffy. He's gonna do what he's gonna do. You're not gonna stop Jeffy from doing something. So it was cool to hear that from him, and we had a cool conversation. And he told me it's cool to. I just wanted to tell him I was gonna tell the story and all that. Mm-hmm. But it was, Jeffy was an awesome dude, and we just became best friends that night. But it was awesome to hang with him up until then. And we lost an important person in snowboarding, and it affected so many people. What's crazy is I blacked out all the people that it actually affected also. It's crazy. I didn't know how it affected Blue. Totally forgot Blue was there. It was his birthday until he told me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just basically buried a lot of it. I probably should have. PTSD wasn't a thing back then, maybe. I guess. Less talked about. I remember Angie said, she told my dad, you need to call Ethan. Something crazy just happened to him in Japan. He's like, why? Why do I need to call him? It was just how things were back then,
Yeah.
There's a couple things there, but, one thing with Jeffy that, obviously touched everybody's life, incredibly lived a hell of a life. And one could, this is so insignificant, but the Jeff Anderson Memorial Skateboard Park in Mammoth.
Sick, yeah.
Is one of the best skateboard parks in the world. And it was built in his memory, and if you're ever in Mammoth, be sure to check that out. And even furthermore too, I thought earlier you had a quote that because you've been through some hard times, you know, and losing J2.
Yeah, that was harsh.
And losing J2, I know was you went into a depression afterwards, right?
Yeah, losing a best friend. It was probably compounded all the different people you lose as you get older. You start to lose more people. Between suicide and cancer, but yeah, when twos passed, I definitely for a month just crawled into a ball in my basement and just slept pretty much, which is not the right way to handle it. Came out of it all good, but I think it was just compounded. It's compound interest on drama, people passing.
Yep.
And twos was definitely a best friend, so that was definitely a tough loss. But it also maybe came back to Jeffy too, who knows?
Now, when you lose people, I think the only way to really be able to carry on is you kind of have to find some type of spirituality or understanding of it in a different way than have you how have you processed some of that stuff?
Now, thinking on twos and my sister passed, as you know, cancer. I kind of started thinking, we're all going to die. None of us are getting out of here alive, right? If your time's earlier, your time's earlier. I really think that in J2 passing, I had these moments where I really saw, I was with him, like up till the end, and you start to see these moments, like even with Jeffy, like in his eyes, I could tell he was going to die, like you knew he was leaving. And with Twos, hearing him talk, he was like talking to God, it sounded like, or another person that was going to guide him to this next place. And seeing that kind of really made me think, like, there's something after life. There has to be. We all die. We're all going to go through this, and something is after. So when it happens, it's going to happen, I guess. And so maybe you don't have to get so bummed. The drama of Jeffy, like seeing it and all the blood, I think was a little different. Mm-hmm. And seeing Twos in that state was hard, like as he was all skinny from cancer. But we're all going to get there, I guess. So
do you remember specifically some of the stuff Twos was saying?
Yeah, I do. There was one moment where it was crazy. He would sit there and he'd like focus on you, and then he'd all of a sudden look past you like he was seeing other people. And there was one moment when he said like, "Hey, you're the guy that made all the mountains." And then he would like come back and look at you, and then come back and be like, "Don't take his beer, man. He's the dude who made the mountains." Like say stuff like that. And you could tell he was like looking at somebody, like talking to somebody, and he kept like moving his arms and reaching at something. And it just was very obvious that he was talking to someone. And the conversation was lucid with that person, and then he'd fade back in and not be very lucid with you, but then be lucid with whoever he was talking to. And it sounded like that person was kind of guiding him to the next stage, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I mean, something's got to be there.
I mean, if you think about how small we are in the grand scheme of things, something's going on.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. I'm not a religious person, no offense to anyone, but I just have never believed in it. But
yeah,
there's something going on, whether
it's gotta be, right?
Molecular or spiritual or, I don't really know where to put a finger on it. The only people who know the answer are the people who have passed.
Yeah, look, maybe they'll tell you. I don't know.
Well, I think there's signs everywhere if you're looking for them. But going back to there, like when you look at J2 and the way I process this, he's on both sides of the Vail. He's on both sides of the Vail. He's and fucking, how do you explain a white dude named E. Stone that gets possessed by a Jamaican dance hall that has no training whatsoever?
So
I don't know. I view that as like somebody in a past life,
Yeah, exactly.
And however you want to process, it's fine.
Yeah.
And so like there's a lot of hard times that come with people passing, and you have you had a great quote that I thought would be very fitting for somebody that's going through some stuff like this.
And the quote is, "If you're going through hell, keep going." And that's by Winston Churchill. And the first time I heard that definitely resonated with me. Because, you're having these hard times. Good times are around the corner. They always are. Usually you get so sucked into what's going on that's negative, and you can't see your way past that. And maybe it'll make you sleep in the basement for a month like I did. But the good times are right around the corner, so that quote definitely resonates. And hopefully, if you're having depressed times, like just keep that in mind. Their good times are always around the corner.
Well said. And another like positive side to people passing is the people that are left behind tend to value life more and put like it brings them closer. Have you experienced that in any of that?
Well, with Twos, I mean, we had this awesome ceremony after at Brighton that got like all his homies together. And then we're having Tuesday, which by the time this comes out will be done. But on 2/22/22, everyone's getting together again, which is awesome. And I mean, that's bringing people together that haven't seen each other in 20 years sometimes. And all the people from the Colorado days, people that knew him from the East Coast, people that were old pro buddies like Dale Rayberg and Whitey, and just everyone coming out together in Twos' name and getting to hang out for a day. So that's Usually at the funerals, you get together with all these people. You're maybe too sad to realize it, but enjoy that time because you're seeing people maybe you haven't seen in a while.
Well, and it's like, in the last 20 years, snowboarding has seen a lot of loss, even more so recently, right? The thing is that we belong to a community that you don't have to know the person for them to care about you. You have a support system in the snowboarding community, regardless of if you've ever met that person. And that's something that you kind of need to remember. If you're a snowboarder, you're part of a family, no matter what level you're at, no matter where you live, you can always kind of find a little bit of solace in this awesome little thing that we have. That's kind of what I keep in mind, with the Jeffys, the Jaegers, the Dylans, and the people that we've lost is like, they've lived 20 lifetimes in the span of one.
Facts.
They leave behind 20 lifetimes worth of loss when they leave, but it can bring us together, and we can find a little bit of peace in that by being with each other.
Yeah, and people that are down, they got to remember, reach out to snowboarders because they will help you.
Yep.
Just say what up to a snowboarder that you don't know, make a new friend.
DM them?
Yeah, DM them. I mean, I answer every DM that comes across my phone. It's hit anybody up because I'm sure someone will be there for you if you need it. We don't need any more loss like that. But, yeah, the community's here. And, there's a lot of love, and you just got to ask for it, I guess, if you need it.
Yep.
Another, kind of point on the topic of some of this stuff, too, is I think that, I just got to share, from a personal experience, I went through some hard times, and I've picked up the phone, and I've called you. Mm-hmm. When we first started the show, I was in not a great place, and I would pick up the phone and call Budz every night and talk to him for 3 fucking hours. And I'm a talker, as you guys know, if anybody listens to the fucking show, obviously. But it takes somebody that's gone through hard times to understand. You have some friends that are like, I'm here for you, dog. Just call me. And then you call them and
they don't answer.
Just
they
call
ghost
me.
you.
Yeah, whatever. And then, but you just pick up and you were just there for me 100%. And that's just something that I just have to highlight. Being a good friend and a good person is I'll never forget that.
I knew you needed it, and so I was there. And it's important to be there.
It's important to be there for your friends.
Yeah, and if you're not, you aren't maybe that tight of a friend. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe some people just aren't good at it. Who knows? But
maybe they haven't gone through hard times.
Yeah.
And they don't know how bad you need it.
Yeah, how the people need it. You got to do it. Mm-hmm. My chick was there for me during that Jeffy thing, and got me through it. And thank you, Angie. And so I would do that for anyone else.
Yep.
Well, along those lines, I know you had another wild experience being over in Japan with the Technine crew too.
Dude, very wild. So we were in Japan on a Technine trip. We actually went over there. We were going to do a video premiere of maybe Familia 2, I want to say. I could be wrong on the video. I don't know. But we had a full Technine crew. Our distributors actually flew us out. Or we were going to do a team demo too, which was going to be really cool at a resort. And combo it as a F.O.D.T filming trip. And we happened to be over there during the Fukushima thing, which was the tsunami and earthquake. And not only we were over there, we were actually shooting the moment it happened. We were in the streets. And I'll never forget it, we were shooting at a Japan cemetery, which you guys have been there. They're very sacred. A lot of times your guide doesn't even want you messing around.
It's like a temple. Almost.
Well, it was more like, it was one of those little towns.
Yep.
So it was like a cemetery up top, and there was this shrine down bottom. And up top is where they were dropping in, and they were actually dropping in through the cemetery. And then the landing was right next to the shrine. And the guides are always very hesitant about riding over sacred ground and all that, but they decided it was okay. And so we're having a session. Jake Devine ends up getting hurt. We later find out when he gets home, he broke his neck. And we didn't even know that till he got home. And so he ended up chilling. He didn't need to go to the hospital right away. He felt okay. Lucas starts shredding. And Lucas is in mid-session. And all of a sudden, I started getting nauseous. And I guess that happens when an earthquake hits because your equilibrium gets weird. And nauseous to the point where everyone fell down to their knees, kind of, at the same time. Lucas had just dropped too and hurt himself, and everyone started feeling weird and fell over. And I remember looking at the mountains and seeing the trees going, wow, wow, wow. and like so much you could hear him. And then turns out Lucas is like hurt, like his knee is hurt. And then the guides start freaking out because they didn't know what was going on. We had no communication, phones weren't working, and they thought that because we were snowboarding on the cemetery that something weird was happening, like ghosts were messing with us. Like they were 100% convinced. And so they made us all get over to that shrine and start like praying on it. And then all of a sudden we all got nauseous again and another earthquake hit. We later found out it was an earthquake. And they started reading on the shrine that there was this big train accident there. And like 20 people died and they were all buried up top. So they were like 100% convinced that that's what was happening. And then later we get to the hospital with 2 hurt riders and everyone's going nuts. And we're looking at the screens and the tsunami. We're seeing footage of that and realize what's going on. And we're just tripped out. We see on the news like the spot we were at the day before was like this mountain pass, and the earthquake buried the whole pass. Like had we been there that day, we all probably would have died, which is crazy. And we ended up getting back to our hospital or our hotel after the hospital. We found out Lucas blew his knee out. Jake was like broke part of his neck, but you couldn't even, phones still weren't even really working, and all the bridges were closed, so you couldn't even like go back to Tokyo or anything. So we just had to sit tight at our hotel, and the aftershocks were crazy, like almost gnarlier than the first ones. And middle of the night, that first night, we were kind of staying on this like 10-level hotel on a cliff. It was like one of those Cali-looking things on a cliff that just looked so sketchy. And we had no choice but to sleep there because all the bridges and stuff were closed. And middle of the night, the whole place starts shaking, and like this alarm goes off, and we had to evacuate the hotel. Like we got word that everyone needed to be outside of the hotel for like 2 hours, and we get out there. It was to the point it was shaking so much like people were thrown out of their beds. So that's what woke us up. It was like 3 a.m. And we get out there. We look around. No Magoon and Divine. We fully left them up in there. And they were sharing the same room, and they were too hurt to move. They got shaken out of their beds. So me and Cole run back in there, and we put them both in, I think we put, there was those luggage carts. We put them both in luggage carts and get them out of there. And pretty much the whole time we were there until we left, the ground was shaking at one time or another, and just like, when's it going to be bigger? What's going to happen? And we ended up being able to leave like at our actual the airport opened up the day our tickets were, so we had like priority to leave and all that. But we obviously canceled our event with Maneuver Line, and I went to Maneuver Line, our distributor, and like did a big speech because their office actually got destroyed from the earthquake. But I remember, like, you go into 7-Eleven, and they couldn't deliver food and stuff, so all the shelves were empty. I can pop up some photos of that scene.
Wow.
But it was crazy. We pretty much thought, like, some of the younger dudes on the trip were, like, trying to get their parents to call the military and get them out. And we're just like, dude, you got to just chill. Like, we're here. We're with Japan. We're with these people. And it had to be very respectful because they're very emotional about what had happened. I mean, a lot of people had up in Fukushima where you're closer with the tidal wave and all that. It was gnarly. It was a pretty major thing, and no one knew what was going to happen next. In Tokyo, the buildings are made for earthquakes because there's a lot of earthquakes there, I guess. So when you're up in those and an earthquake hits, those buildings like sway, and we found out that that's normal and actually safe. And they're built like that, but that happened in Tokyo too. I even remember right before our plane took off, another earthquake went, and we were just like, dude, when we took off, we were just like, oh man, I think we like kissed the ground when we got home because we thought, who knows what was going to happen? It was a crazy, very crazy time to be there. But also, looking back at it, it was nice to be there to see what they were going through and kind of realize what it was like in a situation like that. And afterwards, there was a big worry about radiation because of Fukushima, and everyone had to have like Geiger counters and all that. Like, I remember the guy at Maneuver Line said you had to have them in your apartment and like use it daily to make sure things were safe with radiation. And it was just a very gnarly time to be there on a trip, but it was, I had a lot of good friends over there, so it was nice to know everything was going to be okay when everything opened back up, and we were able to go home and all that. It was definitely an experience.
Heavy.
That was heavy.
And the Japanese culture, it went through so much with that.
So much.
But they're so damn resilient. It's incredible how they were able to pick up the pieces. And
there's such a respectful culture, and there's such good people that it's you really can learn a lot going over there and of how to maybe you should act as well. I remember once I left different trip way early when I was like staff photographer for Sims, shooting like Kevin Jones and Tarquin at this Olympic rail in Nagano or something. I left all my I don't know what was going on. We were drinking. I was excited. Kevin Jones was hitting a rail, with Marco and Kurt Westell. And I left all my flashes at the rail, set up. Just left the session. And we're in the car, and I'm like freaking out. Like, this is all my equipment, It costs a lot of money. And the guy's just like, don't worry about it. I'm just like, dude, I got to get back to my shit. Got to go get my equipment. Oh, don't worry about it. He's like, if someone has taken them, I will buy you new ones. I was just like, all right. And we get back there, like, I think 2 days later, and my stuff was neatly packed up and folded, put away right there by the handrail. And in Japan, people don't steal.
Wow.
Only in Tokyo where there's, like, Yakuza and that kind of stuff. But in the mountains, it's, like, not a thing.
Nobody locks up bikes.
Yeah.
Nothing like that.
I mean, there's vending machines with beer in it, and it's an honor system. Like when I was young, I would have drained that thing. But in Japan, they don't do that. It's like honor system. No, I would never drink when I'm not old enough. So it's just such a cool culture.
It's just something about like everything's for the common good, right?
Yeah.
It's for your fellow man. They're thinking about more than themselves 99.9% of the time, and that's the takeaway that I always take from Japan. You leave and go home and you're like, man, that is a special place especially to go snowboard,
And the terrain up north in the North Island, the best powder. There's great street spots. It's kind of the spot.
Oh yeah.
The 7-Elevens and
7-Elevens there are next level.
Yeah. Are you a Sevy or a Psycho Mart guy?
I'm Savvy all the way.
Savvy all the way.
Yeah.
States and Japan.
States and Japan.
They got Lawson's too. You can't forget Lawson's.
Lawson's.
Oh,
yeah, there's a
Place
Lawson's. But Savvy, man.
So to keep the train moving here, because we've been chugging along. Let's kind of dive into, you had Technine for 20 years.
Yeah, a long time.
Started it from a freaking hack job binding to full outerwear company to influencing an entire generation of snowboarders and really carving your own niche and having a company that does over $6 million a year in sales and all. It's one hell of a run for Technine. And how did that ultimately come to an end?
So after I think by the time it ended, we were on like our fourth investor. So it's pretty diluted, and like every investor seemed to get worse than the last one on what they expected and what they wanted and the direction they wanted to go. So it was getting a little bit. I mean, I was so into shooting photos, I was almost just like, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's time to move on. But our last investor basically decided that the brand could go on without Cole and I. He was just like, and something you learn in life is, I think, any situation in any job, and you learn this at Snowboarder, the brand can go on without, but Technine for some reason kind of couldn't.
I didn't know it was still a brand.
Well, that's the thing, is it still kind of is a brand, but it's not really a brand.
Okay, I didn't know that.
It's not like pushing out number. I mean, it just can't. I mean, maybe if they had done it right, maybe, and hired a bunch of right people, but this guy was like, we'll just cut the team and we'll get rid of Ethan and Cole and we'll just still sell. It doesn't work in snowboarding. There's too much culture around it. They did try to offer Lucas money to stay, thinking like, we need his Lucas, and Lucas told him to F off, which is pretty sick because a lot of people might have taken the money.
Which is why you should buy Goon Gear.
Yeah, Goon Gear.
Straight
Support
up.
Goon Gear.
Straight up.
Yeah, that's such a. I mean, a lot of people would have taken the money. It was like good money. He could have probably still. Who knows what would have happened? I mean, I don't know, but he told him like without the crew, it ain't happening.
There's no soul.
Needs a heartbeat.
There's a brand and a product, but there's nothing behind it.
Yeah, and he knew that this guy wasn't a snowboarder, and I think Lucas knew the direction it would go. And so at the end. That is what is demise, but I think the demise started before that, because in order you get through 4 investors, there's obviously like a money draw that's I think in the long run, it's really hard to do a snowboard company being one season. And I think that's why you see these big companies, they are able to pull it off a little more. But then even like Adidas eventually pulls out because they're realizing like, this really isn't adding up, you know? So it's really more of a passion. And maybe if you keep it small and, you know, Crab Grab, they got a great thing going. They've kept it small. Preston doesn't have a big overhead. And maybe that's the way to do it. If you're someone starting a company, that would be my advice.
Yeah.
The second you try to maybe grow too big, you're going to have to do things that maybe aren't right for the brand, and then you're going to be headed in the wrong direction, and it eventually lead to that.
Was there ever a point where you were sitting in one of those meetings? I mean, you're like you and Cole are tried and true core snowboarders through and through. Was there any point where you're sitting in there with a bunch of suits being like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like,
there was one meeting with that last investor where he told me he didn't like me. Like, basically, like, I think you suck. Like, he basically told me I would fire you if I could, but I don't think I can. And eventually he just he actually never fired me. That was the second to last one because he was just not a snowboarder. And me and Cole were always like, you have to do this, or you're going to die. And he ended up selling to another guy that was eventually didn't see how that guy was smart enough to know that he couldn't get rid of us. But we ended up becoming all right with each other because he respected how Cole and I kind of stood our ground. But I mean, when that was happening, it was just kind of like, this isn't going to, I need to focus more on photography. But, you know, Cole was so passionate with what he had built because he did all the outerwear and kind of handcrafted the team. That was a tough thing. And, I mean, it's tough to see it like your baby. But I kind of saw it coming maybe some years out, so I was focusing on photography and all that. It's just such a hard business. I don't know if I would advise. I think if we had stuck with just bindings, that would have maybe, you know, we'd be able to keep the marketing strong and not have to, you know, once you get full head to toe, you got to like support these guys' whole life, the riders, or else it's not going to work, you know? So you got to pay some good money. And then even like little things people don't think about when Cole's on a trip and someone breaks their board and you got to FedEx them a board, that costs a shitload of money. It's almost like $200 or something. You do that 100 times during a season, like think of the bill, think of the product bill.
What are we talking like? You don't have to name names, but the highest paid Technine rider was making how much? What are we talking?
I don't know, like $60K and then royalties on top of that.
That's pretty damn good.
Yeah. But you had to, you know, and then there's travel budget. But so once you sit down there and break down a product budget, a travel budget, and then advertising, I mean, you're getting to some coin, and then you got to be doing some sales. And then when your father's sneaking money out the back door, then maybe that's not going to work out. So that's eventually why, like, he ended up not being part of it. He wasn't sneaking money out the back door. He was, like, making extra product, selling it as, like, pre-sell, like, closeouts, and then making the money, keeping the money. So then you like get new investors. Our investor kind of gets onto that and sees that going down. So he ended up not being part of the company. He was able to like sell for a little bit and tried to get us to sell with him, but we were like not ready at that time. But yeah, it's just hard to the money needed. Like each investor got to a point where like, you know, at $3 million I was able to fund this, but at $4 million this is just too much money. Like I don't have the money to do this. So we never had an investor maybe with deep enough pockets. And maybe that was a good thing because you don't want these guys to lose money. You know, that's a bad scenario. So it's just a hard thing running a brand. And I think that's the facts, what it comes down to. Anyone doing a board brand, you know, they're so expensive. I think you have to have really deep pockets to make that happen because it's so seasonal. And then when you're in a niche like Technine was, it even gets harder, you know. So it's just a hard business.
Now, you just briefly kind of breezed over the fact that your dad had a kind of a sneaky operation going with Technine.
Sneaky Pete.
He was going Sneaky Pete on the back door. Now, what is your guys' relationship? How is that? How do you guys stand?
You know, I've learned that there's 3 sides to a story, you know.
Yeah.
You talk to him, he has a whole different story and than I have, and you know, who knows which is right. But we don't have a relationship. Now, we've tried to mend it, and it just never really took. So we haven't talked in like 10 years or something. But, I mean, there's even deeper stuff than that. Like my sister and him didn't talk much. My brother and him don't talk much. So who knows if it's more of Technine. But for me, the stuff that he did with Technine, when I found out he was like, taking extra money and all that, like that was kind of a deal breaker for me. It was hard enough when I saw the credit card, but with all that stuff that my mom had kind of warned me about, that was kind of a deal breaker. And then him taking the attitude that he almost denying that he did it, but I knew he did it, was kind of just a deal breaker. But like years later, we tried to mend it, but just didn't really take. So it is what it is, I guess.
Heavy stuff. Well, that being said, I think it's a good time to change gears into, you're going into photography here, and you got to live one of the greatest eras and shoot one of the greatest eras, at least for photography's sake, of the biggest, gnarliest, heavy progression time periods of all time. That being
bit of a digression session going on.
Well, it's just I'd say it's going in a different direction.
Yeah.
It's going to, but back then, we had fucking heavy equipment going. People are hitting huge spots. You should talk about the birth of the real snow era.
Yeah, it was really real snow that pushed it over the edge, I think.
Explain, what is real snow to people that are unfamiliar.
Yeah, so real snow is X Games. They've had the X Games for years at this point, and they wanted to kind of get their angle into the street snowboarding to start, and they put up some big money at first.
They did it proper.
Yeah, they did it proper.
They really did.
And riders had a month at first to put a video. They were handpicked, and they had the right people behind it too. They had Mac Dog involved and Gunny involved,
and
right?
it was like $50K.
Yeah, Louis one year won $75K.
Crazy money.
Yeah, so that amount of money and the putting you on it was on TV as well. So putting you on that stage as a street rider, and you get an X Games medal and this big check, it really pushed what people were willing to do in these streets. And you got Breezy out there building crazy stuff, jumping off buildings. You got Bodie, Louis. Chris won a gold medal. It was outrageous. The money eventually thinned up. Give yourself an air horn, bud. A little gold medal.
Hit it.
Appreciate it.
Hit it.
And they were giving the filmers medals
Yep.
as well. So these filmers were like their first time to win a gold medal from X Games, and man, they were stoked. So they were willing to give it all and go for broke. And the level of riding just was pushed to the ultimate extreme. And shooting it was awesome because obviously the images were going to be really dope.
Was there ever a time where you were like, man, obviously as a photographer, we always have utmost confidence in the riders, right? You're always like, they're going to land. They're not going to get hurt. Was there ever a time where you're like, yo, if this goes sideways, it's going to be super bad?
There was with Breezy on that building gap in Duluth. Even though the gap wasn't very big as far as how much distance, it was like if you didn't make it, there was no way he was going to survive.
Yeah.
And even for Randy, who was up on the roof pulling the rope because we had to do a car pivot, every time he was hitting ice and was worried that he wasn't going to stop in time, and then he would go off this building in the car, basically. And if the rope snapped, it was going to be his fault that Dan died. So, he was in tears at one point in the session because he thought the rope broke or something. And I was shooting down in the guts with a wide angle, just thinking, dude, I'm going to be standing here if something went wrong. And I think even Dan, they had Dan and Bjorn and Krister, Bjorn Linus and Krister Wallace. No, Krister
Rawls.
Yeah. Christopher Wallace is Biggie Smalls.
That's right.
Krister Wallace, we just saw in Duluth, which was dope. They hit this gap, and it was all fun and games to them because it was small and it felt easy, but one wrong move and it's death. And Dan realized that after, and it was the last one he ever did. This one in Salt Lake here that he shot with Andy Wright, kind of by my house in Cottonwood Heights, that one, the distance was so gnarly. It was one of the earlier ones that he did. I can't even believe he did it.
It was the Transworld cover.
Yeah, the Transworld cover is just ridiculous. And back paired with that time, the magazines were thick too. So as a photographer, you were able to make pretty good money as well because there were so many advertisers. That was maybe a little earlier than X Games. Transworld and Snowboarder at one point they were like phone books almost. And so as a photographer, you almost thought of photos, or you thought of purchases in terms of if I sell one photo, I can buy that, because you'd be able to sell so many ads. And so that those days of lots of advertising and into X Games were just really probably the heyday, because as it's gotten to now, a lot of photographers had to back down because they don't even get money to go on trips.
Well, back in the day, we were doing magazines this thick, and there were like 10 a year.
Yeah.
You do like a resort guide and a summer issue, and over the years, it just got slimmer. And smaller.
Yeah, every year a little slimmer until now, where it's like you can't even get a photographer on a trip because there's no budget for them.
Yeah.
And there's just crews out there with a filmer, and that's it. And so there's way less photographers than ever. I almost feel like maybe times are about to swap, though. You say everything comes in cycles.
I think so, too.
Hopefully. I mean, maybe it's wishful thinking, but maybe we're on that build back up, the Olympic hype. It just seems like there's a new excitement. There's more people than ever at the resorts, so there's obviously more people snowboarding. I mean, it seems that way to me. So I don't know. Hopefully we're on an uptick right now.
And one other thing you breezed over, too, talking about X Games, you know who I think we always talk about Breezy, but who maybe did just as much crazy shit that doesn't get the shine that you shot just as many photos of, is F.O.D.T.
Yeah, F.O.D.T.
Like, you shot a lot of heavy photos of F.O.D.T.
Yeah, F.O.D.T. was going ham back then. I mean, he's just such a talented dude. Going out with him, you just always knew it was going to be something awesome. And, F.O.D.T. was able to get some dope coverage with him, go on some dope trips. And it was crazy, too. The competition level was tough back then with, like, Breezy and F.O.D.T. And I got caught in some spot drama. So we went to this town in Saskatoon. My homie at Propaganda told me the snow was flying. So I think first I went up there with F.O.D.T. And place was awesome. I think Harrison was with us too, which was dope.
Harrison is the first person that told me about the Parim.
Oh, really?
He popularized the Parim.
That's so sick. Yeah, Gardy was up there. Gardy hit a big old closeout out there. But anyways, there was this spot in the middle of the town that there's no way you can't see it. It's a bridge that was like half ripped off, and there's a rail on it. And it was the sickest spot, and everything was perfect. There's no way not to see it. I'm there with Bodie and Cole, and we were supposed to hit it, and Bodie didn't hit it. So I go home from that trip. 2 days later, I get a call from Breezy. I'm in Saskatoon.
Uh-oh.
Got this spot. And I'm like, sick, I'll fly up there. It's the same spot. And what am I going to do? Like, I got to shoot it.
You're going to shoot it.
I mean, Dan's going to hit it whether I shoot it or not. And it was just spot drama. Like, I had to, talk it out with Bodie after. He was, all upset.
Well, and it was a cover.
It was a cover.
That added to spot drama.
Yeah.
I remember being part of the spot drama because it was a cover, right?
And I don't remember why we didn't hit it with Bodie. It was I think he thought it was going to be too much of a bust or something, but Dan didn't care about bust. Dan was just whatever, bust. He would just try and weather talk his way out of it, and Bodie was just a little more calculated and didn't want to spend time getting busted. So, yeah, as a photographer, you get put in positions like that sometimes, and it's just hard, but it ended up being a cover. Now I guess it's years later. Bygones are bygones. Hopefully no one's still upset about that. Bodie, sorry, dog. But, spot drama happens.
A couple other quick ones. Can you walk us through there's a picture on the wall from a Poland train tunnel. What happened there, Buds? We may have told it on air, but maybe not everybody's heard it.
There's actually a lot to happen around that rail. I think we spent a couple days there. Our first time walking in, it was at a train track, and as you always know, those are always heavily fenced off and kind of in a sketchy part of town. We're walking up to the spot. There's this car there all fogged up, and Lucas is peeking in the window. There's people having sex in there. And then I think they stopped and look up, and Lucas is staring in, and they just kept going. And
wow.
We're just oh, wow.
Respect.
These guys, they're really trying to get after it. But the train tunnel, we were at the spot. You're in the middle of nowhere. It's super cold. I had to shit my pants. You're in this foreign country. You're eating a lot of wild food. And I go in the tunnel, and Cole sees me go, and I think I even told him I had to go to the bathroom. So I go in there and spackle the wall up of the tunnel. And then a train comes, and Cole didn't know how far the other side was or didn't see me come out and straight up thought that I got murked in there, got just hit by the train and was all freaking out. And I had come out the other side because he looked in there and I was gone. He thought I got hit by the train. I survived. I just spackled the wall up.
Can we
sick spot?
Can we quickly talk about the shoot that I assisted you on with Breezy at Brighton High?
We can.
Oh, I love this. I love this.
I needed I think I had another session to shoot, another crew to shoot.
He's double booked.
I might have been out shooting Bodie earlier in the morning or something. I can't remember who it was. And I was double booked, so I hit up T-Bird. And I was like, there's this dope session going on, but it's going to need a lot of work. He was kind of new to shooting photos.
Yep.
And
Hungry.
He was hungry hippo. And I was just like, dog, you go there and stand in and shovel for me. Because if I didn't shovel for Breezy, that's a bad move. But if I had a stand-in, that works. And so I was like, Bird, you can shoot it all you want, do what you want, and you just got to show up. And I think it happened to be one of those, like, 40 pickup truck days.
Oh, it was a big
Do you have a Bobcat?
You couldn't get the Bobcat back to the school.
He didn't want to drive it on the track and field track.
Yeah.
Breezy's a really respectful dude. He was like, I'm not going to rip it up, So we were shoveling it into his truck, driving it, unloading it. I think it was like 39 truckloads of snow.
It was heavy.
And literally the final tap before the speed check, Easton just comes walking out onto the field. What's up, dog? I was just like, this motherfucker. But you know what?
Epic session.
It got me in with Breezy for life, right? Anytime after that Breezy called, he was like, yo, I want you to come shoot this.
He knew he was
really
down
funny.
to put in the work.
Yeah.
I got a couple other topics we got to cover here briefly because they're just too good to pass up. First one is, can you explain what a turkey trot is?
You're talking about a turkey trot scenario?
We're talking about a turkey trot scenario here.
I was supposed to go ride with him and Pat Moore. Were you up there?
I was involved with the turkey trot somehow. I don't remember.
And we're all supposed to meet like first chair. I think it was a powder day. I don't even know. And I'm notoriously late.
Yes.
Everyone knows this.
You are?
Never. And so the first time this happened, I think I got up there all late or whatever, and everyone's giving me shit. And I was like, dude, the turkey trot was coming by my house, and everyone thought I was lying. And this turkey trot is a marathon in Cottonwood Heights that happens to go through my house or past my street. And when that happens, they block off the road like police, and you can't get your car out. You're stuck. If you pull your car out, the cops are gonna shut you down. So everyone thought I was lying. So a year later, I filmed the turkey trot and sent it to all you guys to prove that this thing existed.
And it actually, I can confirm that,
2
years later, I moved there and the turkey trot came right by my house.
I was also told that you were afraid to pull out of your driveway because, quote unquote, you're afraid of mob mentality.
I don't know if that's true or not, but that sounds
just
great.
like start pounding on your car. What the fuck are you doing?
Those Mormons get restless.
So
you mess up their their family events, things get gnarly. Everyone knows that.
The other thing too is just to forward that situation is that Budz is, like you said, notoriously late. So anytime he's late, you're like, oh, what do we got, a fucking turkey trot scenario on our hands here?
And it comes up all the time too. But people that weren't there, people that don't know about it, I even get DMs sometimes.
It's a classic turkey trot scenario.
That's so good.
Yeah, anytime I'd be late for a session, it was a turkey trot scenario.
And another topic here I think that would be good to get into is when you think about Technine spots, they're very infamous as far as like they're by railroad tracks. There's maybe some graffiti involved. I'm just curious as the perfect recipe for what a Technine spot you guys are looking for when you're doing a perim, when you're looking for the spot. Can you break down the criteria for us?
I mean, railroad spots always have either a closeout or a nice rail up to the top of the train tunnel, like that photo of Dylan up there. And guaranteed to have graffiti, without a doubt. Another recipe is an abandoned building.
Okay, abandoned building.
You go to the bando.
The bando, okay.
The bando's going to deliver every time. You can always figure out a wall ride by some graffiti or go off the roof, whatever it takes. The bandos deliver. When we hit up to Detroit, bandos everywhere. So many spots. But yeah, that's basically the recipe, a little graffiti.
And even if there isn't graffiti, you guys might add
then we
your
might
own.
get someone to put. Well, we'd get to the point where we'd go international and people would like go there before us and throw up burners. Remember in Estonia, they went to that tunnel, and were you still there when that happened?
I was.
Yeah, they went and threw up graffiti. The local news showed up and shit. And yeah, I guess we're infamous for that.
Okay, and then also, what does it take? Because you're usually controlling the aux cord when we're in the van.
Young aux cord.
Young aux cord, and you go through a beautiful plethora of genres. Can you I would say you're the best trip DJ.
I appreciate that.
And can you just walk us through? If somebody's on a trip and they're the DJ, what's the recipe?
I think the recipe is to mix it up. You know, I'd go on trips with Bodie and Desiree. I'd be told to DJ, but the one rule was no rap music.
Oof. Yikes.
That's tough.
Yikes.
Throw on an emo set for those guys. They're just so happy. You go on a trip with other people, though. You just got to be mindful of who's in the van.
Know your audience.
You got to know your audience and deliver. And I always like all sorts of genres of music. People always think it's rap or nothing, but I like everything. So that's just know your audience.
All right, buds. Let's get into some hot takes. Now, Hot Takes is presented by Oakley Goggles, and they also make helmets. I've recently been wearing a domer, a helmet. I've been rocking the Oakley Mod 5. Really enjoy it. And it protects the dome. So that being said, I think we should get into the hot takes presented by Oakley. Now, first things first, we're going to start with the MJ and or GOAT, both male and female snowboarding. Who you got?
Heavy.
You know, I have a new GOAT.
Who's that?
Jeremy Jones.
Woo!
Jibber.
There it is.
Seeing him out on this last trip, just still doing this at 47. I mean, how can you not give this guy some props as the one of the best to ever do it?
Yep.
Going through what he went through and doing what he's doing, he is my new GOAT. I do want to say I think Sage is a GOAT in the making.
Okay.
I like that take.
Yep.
In the making.
GIM, GOAT in making.
We'll see if he ends up there.
Got it.
But he's on his way. Female, Jess Kamara.
Solid answer.
She's just the best.
Yep.
Okay. And then let's get into GOAT of photography.
Oh, snap, dude.
I know this is
a tough one.
You might hurt some feelings here too. You might hurt some feelings.
Dude.
You can't dodge this one.
There's no dodging.
You have to give us some.
Ole Gagnon.
Woo! He's my GOAT too.
He's just out there still stacking, getting the best photos with the best people. And
Put him in a heli. Put him in the streets.
yeah, he's doing this. I mean, Andy Wright can handle both as well.
Yep.
But he put his hat in for retirement, you know. Ole's still out there going.
Okay, who's the most underrated?
Photographer?
Both photographer and boarder.
Boarder. I might go. It's so hard on the underrated one, man. That's tough. I might go like the Mindicks.
Oh yeah, good answer.
Those guys are so dope, and I mean they get hooked up, they're sponsored and everything, but they could be getting more, you know.
Yeah, love it.
And the photographer, I might go Germ Worldwide on him.
That is a good answer.
He's not even a photographer.
He's just a media machine.
Yeah, he's just a
he
natch.
does it all.
He's
Media
the natch.
juggernaut,
Yeah.
if you will.
He's incredible.
Now, who's the best photographer is what I'm curious about.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, nobody does. Nobody does. Okay. Lastly, we got. Actually, we'll hit a couple more. If you go heli boarding with 3 people in the world stacked up in the heli, who you got?
I got an answer for this.
Yep.
I would sit down with Jules,
Yep.
find out who the Patreon people are that are the most active. It's not about money. It's not about money. It's just the most active.
Loyalty.
Because to me, going hellion, I mean, we had someone in here the other day that talked about how this will be out before mine, Chad, talked about how, like, don't go to the Yellowstone Club till you're older. Dude, go hellion. That's going to ruin it more than it's going to be better than the Yellowstone Club any day. You can have your warming hut, but getting, like, fresh places that no one's ever shredded, you're the only people there. To watch people experience that for the first time, that would be dope. So I would like to fill it with Patreon people, and I'll shoot them.
Wow, buds! What a great
It's
answer.
an incredible answer.
Shout out to our Patreon members. They keep this gravy train rolling. Okay, then we're gonna talk beaver slap here. What's your take?
You know, I'm not a heavy beaver slapper.
Okay.
I mean, I know it upsets the people that are rocking that are doing the lift line work. I mean, I've definitely done it, but I don't know if that I avidly do it.
Okay. Lastly, worst trend.
You know, worst trend. My buddy Travis Wood threw one on me that technology has been the worst trend for snowboarding because of what it's done to photography. But I also feel like it's been the best trend because you can't hide from change. So that's kind of a flip-flop answer, but
it's introspective. You got to think about it. Yeah.
If you hide from the change, you're going to be a dinosaur, and you're not going to evolve with it. But it has had its moments of what it's done for photography and media and all that. But we're going to recover from it either way.
Freaking great answer, Buds. Okay, and we're going to keep going because we got to talk about what we're we're doing right now, the Bombhole. That's the most latest chapter in the biography of Budz.
Photography started to get to a point where it was started to like taper off almost the financial aspect of it, I would say. I mean, there are still obviously good gigs and people making good money, but the writing was kind of on the wall. Magazines were disappearing. So it's such rad timing. You were going to do a podcast either way. So I have to say thank you for including me on it as the guy that you chose, because I think we go together pretty well because we're so different-minded, I guess. And I think that works. And if each of us tried to do it alone, I don't know if it would have worked the same way. I have no idea. Maybe we don't know, but I don't think so. So, yeah, it's very when we started it, we were on that trip throwing down names and talking about it, and everyone else on the trip was just listening to us talk shit in the van, and they were like, "Hey, you guys would be great." But who knows if they even really listened to us. But we came home, and you were in a place where I think you needed something new. I definitely was getting a little bit stagnant maybe. And we just made that commitment that no matter what, we were going to go hard. And even if people didn't listen, we were going to still just put out episode after episode. At least, what did we say, like at least 10 or something? 25. Or 25, is that what we said? That was the number. Like no matter what, we were going to put out 25. And even if people didn't follow us or didn't do anything, but we had that captive audience with COVID, and I think that really helped us. And it's been pretty damn fun, I got to say. Like to go from your garage to this office.
I remember it was like Grenier put together a supercut. It was like Bud's best hits from the trip. It was unbelievable. It was like a 1 minute Instagram Reels or whatever. I probably watched it like 9 times. I was laughing so fucking hard.
The one from our Finland trip.
It was unbelievable where you steamed up the lens and you're in the kitchen.
Yeah, Chris was already talking about a podcast then. Like that was a year before even.
Yeah.
I mean, when you started Board Slides and Banter, you were kind of just always headed that way. And I always in my mind thought it would be rad to, I don't know, do something with the mic and YouTube or something. I don't know. So it's kind of cool.
I remember you guys, one of you two hit me up. You called me and you're like, yes, Bombhole, 1 word or 2. And I was like, I actually have no fucking idea. Like, I don't really know. It's not really a word, but it's
2 words.
Absolutely incredible. Like what you guys have done here, like for the snowboarding community as a whole. We
just have our head down too. We don't even often realize it. Just pump out episodes and
as an outsider, it's like the greatest new addition to snowboarding in decades.
That's awesome.
Thank you, T-Bird.
It's incredible. It's an honor to sit here.
Thank you.
That's so dope.
The other thing, going back to just this, the inception of the podcast, the thing that's cool is like we would be driving around in the van. And like the banter, like in between spots where we're driving, we're listening to rap. Budz is like, close out, Benny rail. And it's like we're just like fucking talking about just mundane, stupid shit and laughing our asses off. And it's always been this like this weird intuition where it's like Budz is the guy. He's the guy, And it's been so fun, Budz. It's been so fun doing.
I was stoked, man. If I wasn't the guy, I'd be sad because this is so much fun.
Yeah. Cool. What about just speaking on Bombhole stuff real quick? How do you feel about it seems like the community aspect of it?
Dude, the community aspect is so dope, and a lot of people reach me on DM, and it's so cool talking to them and helping people through problems if need be, or just hearing good things. And it's just the community is really the best part for me.
Another thing too to think about why you the recipe that makes you the guy too is at the end of the day, we have fun, we laugh, we're dipshits, but then also conversation comes up and it's hard times, and you've lived hard times.
Yeah.
And it takes somebody that's lived hard times to be able to relate. And
that's true,
and you're a people person, and it's like that this whole story that you just fucking told of all these, the story of Budz, of all these fucking 10 lifetimes of wild experiences that you've experienced, all culminate into you sitting in that chair and being able to relate to people that are our guests. And it's beautiful.
Love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's definitely awesome.
All right. We're rounding the corner. Let's bring her home strong, boys. Let's finish her off nice.
Let's do that.
Let's do this.
One of the last things we like to do is ask our guest about their setup. What snowboard setup are you riding, Budz?
Yes, dog. I got this new kind of exciting thing going on.
What do we got going on?
I am a what's it called? A
ambassador?
Ambassador. Thank you for the word.
You sure are. You sure are an ambassador.
I'm a union and spring break ambassador. And right here behind me, I have the Team Force Union bindings on this mini tree hunter. Man, these boards are so sick on the powder, and so stoked on the C3 family for involving me on their program. Blue and I go way back, as he said in his episode, and it's just dope. Corey Smith, actually, who started Spring Break, used to be a Technine rider.
What are we talking, like stance width, angles?
21.5-inch stance. Positive 18 in the front, negative 6 in the back.
Like that.
I'm surprised. What about edges? You wax that thing up? You fuck with the edges?
I don't do any detail.
Right out of the... Right
I'm not hitting the steel. I'm too old for the steel. I used to enjoy the lumber, as we talked about.
More of a lumber guy.
More of a lumber guy. But the steel, once you get over 40, that's like... It's kind of one of those things maybe to avoid unless you're Jeremy Jones.
Talk about what's up with Spring Break, because it seems like a
Spring
really
Break
sick brand.
is pretty dope. Corey Smith, who used to ride for Technine, the artist, has started this brand, and they welcomed it into the C3 family, which is dope. If you go on Capita's website, they have the Spring Break line, and it's pretty sick. It's these powder shapes that are so fun to ride. They also they have some boards that aren't just the powder shapes, but all the shapes are really sick, and it's so much fun in the POW. It's insane. And they have that little slush slasher too. I don't know if you've seen that bad boy. It's so much fun in all conditions.
Those boards are like pieces of art as much as they are like utilitarian snowboards.
I mean, dude, the wood top sheet on this thing, dude, everything out of the mothership. I haven't for years. I don't know why. I never rode one, and I'm realizing the stuff out of the mothership is just, and it makes sense. Blue's attention to detail is just next level. And you really see it just even in the sidewalls. Like other people just have these flat. Theirs are like just have like a little round bevel to them, and everything is just all detail orientated and made with perfection. Also very light. I noticed as well. The boards are very light, and they ride so sick.
We also got to bring up for all the aspiring photographers. They want to know your camera setup. What are you running and gunning with, Buds?
You know, it's funny. For the first half of my photo career, I shot all Canon, and was super hyped on it. And when I got to the point where I'd shot it for a decade, I was just like, fuck, I want to get something new, and I want to feel new. So I switched to Nikon. So I've shot both. I mean, some people are on Sony nowadays, but I'm on all Nikon. I use Elinchrom flashes. A bit back in the day, I would shoot a lot with Hasselblad on film, and man, those things, you just feel like you're making art when you use them. What's crazy too is I bought that one behind T-Bird for, I don't even know, like $500. And they stopped making them, right? They're these Russian-made or German-made cameras. There's a couple like knockoffs that are Russian-made. I don't know why I said Russian-made, but they're German-made. And now they're like $6,000 on the web. They're crazy.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, they're nuts.
Most expensive camera in this room.
Yeah, it really is. It's nuts. I saw that the other day, and I was just tripping. Because they don't make them anymore. They stopped making, so it's a limited number of them out there. And some people, I guess, don't treat them well, and so there's less and less and less. But they really like just shooting art and playing around with film. If you ever want to mess with film and you can get your hands on one of those, man, I highly advise it. And there's cheaper versions too. You don't have to go Hasselblad. Any medium format's dope. But Elinchrom flashes will change your life. There's a new brand out called Godox that is a bit cheaper maybe, so maybe more attainable if you're looking for a good flash kit. But you definitely need something you can have off camera. It'll really step your game up.
Well said. And, you know, we got to ask before we wrap this thing up. Well, first of all, what's next?
What's next? I did start a website where I sell photo prints.
Yep. Let's talk about that.
It's e-stonephoto.com. And I put my prints on there, and I've been so hyped on the support. The people who have bought prints definitely sold way more than I anticipated. And that being said, I do want to say that it helps so much when you support photographers like Blotto's Phone Book. Mike Yoshida, like I mentioned earlier, puts out a cool little zine. Anything you see photographers do, I mean, it's tough. Equipment's expensive. So any support you can offer is going to keep all the photographers out in the field, shooting more, being able to up the equipment and get new equipment as they need it. And it's just going to keep the imagery coming. So support these projects when you can, because it goes a long way.
And also, eStone has 2 decades of iconic imagery that you can print out, you can hang on your wall And that's important in the digital era. And so make sure you support. What's the website, Buds?
It's www.e-stonephoto.com. Maybe Paul will pop it on the screen. And, check it out. I'll be uploading more prints as we go and more images. But right now there's like 60 up there or something.
Killer. And lastly, you got any thank yous?
Thank yous, man. There's so many, too many to mention, I would imagine. But I should mention my original Technine partners, which was J3 and my stepbrother, Mark Girardi, as well as my father. You know, it wouldn't have happened without him, even though we don't talk now and all that. But also like Blotto and Cole Taylor, obviously, was a partner. Blue was a team manager for a while. All the team riders. Much respect to C3 for supporting me now. That really, really hyped on that. And also just Angie for always being there.
Let's give Angie a big old air horn.
And every rider that's been in front of my camera obviously could not do it without them. And you guys, of course. Got to thank you guys.
Thank you, Buds. Really appreciate that. Bird, appreciate you.
Well, especially you, Chris, because I wouldn't be sitting in this chair if you hadn't made this happen. So, because I don't think, your personality is what it takes to push this ship moving forward. I don't know on my own because you're just such a machine. So much respect. I don't think I'd be sitting here without you. So many thank yous.
Thank you so much, Buds. And thank you for all the hard work you poured into making this podcast a reality and how much you care about all of our listeners and everything that you do. I could talk for hours about it. And so thank you for being a good friend, dude.
Thank you, Doug.
And Bird, thanks for coming, co-hosting. And I always got to say, everybody that tunes in, listens, watches on YouTube, supports the Patreon, all that stuff, all of our sponsors, thank you guys so much. We appreciate you. Over and out from the Bombhole.